If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61, Eel. On the same night, Kaguya called Chika immediately after Chika finished her date with Ishigami. The sudden call naturally surprised Chika, and frankly, she didn't really want to talk with anyone, especially after everything that happened with Ishigami today. She might be a little silly, but she wasn't an idiot. Her grade might be average, but she knew well that all the people in this world wouldn't look at her decision to agree to Ishigami's confession in a good light. How could a girl agree to date someone with a girlfriend? Did you think that it was all okay? Have you ever thought about what would happen? After all, there was only one person that Ishigami could marry, yet even so, Chika could see his determination to show her that she didn't choose the wrong man. A year. At that moment in time, he would show her that she wasn't wrong, and while she anticipated what he would do and how he would surprise her, she knew that those who weren't involved and didn't have the same feelings as she wouldn't understand the determination that they had for forming this relationship. Whether it was her sisters, parents, or even her best friend, they would definitely deny their relationship, so Chika was reluctant to talk with anyone and just wanted to sleep, thinking of the kiss that they had previously, which made her a little wet and had a nosebleed. If this kiss skill was gained after his experience with his girlfriend, Chika would push him away and slap him. However, she knew that he was a little awkward at first, but then, slowly, he gained experience and gave her a pleasure that she had never thought of. When two lips joined together and their tongues entangled, the pleasure that came from it was so pleasant that it made her body weak that she could only lean on him. Ishigami exceeded her expectations, and he seemed to have a talent in this area, which made her body scorching once again. Oh, no, I almost got a nosebleed. Even if she was known as a master of love, her defense was weak, and she could do nothing except let herself be toyed with by a virgin like Ishigami. Fortunately, Ishigami was a Yasushi boy, so he didn't push herself further. Yet, if he did, could she even refuse him? When she thought so, her plump, white thighs squeezed together when she thought that Ishigami would become a beast. No, no. I'm not a slut. Yet, the thought of him being unable to control the urge on his body and making a move on her, was just unbearable for her, especially when she thought about his 19 centimeters of eel. Still, she couldn't possibly ignore Kaguya since she knew well that Kaguya was worried about her. If Kaguya thought something happened to her, she was afraid that Ishigami would be in danger, so she accepted the call. Kaguya-san. While she asked so, she pretended to yawn as if she was sleepy. Once again, she might not be the smartest, but in terms of human relationships, she was the strongest. Good evening, Fujiwara-san. Sorry for calling you so suddenly. Are you about to sleep? It's fine, Kaguya-san. I am just a bit exhausted after today. Chika's voice appeared pitiful and exhausted, making Kaguya understand the result of their date. So how was it? It was fun. When Chika recalled the time she spent with Ishigami, subconsciously, a gentle smile formed on her lips. It was fun, but he has a girlfriend. Unless he breaks up, it is impossible between us. I see. Kaguya felt emphatic toward Chika's experience, and at the same time, she also felt quite happy for some reason. Yet, it was impossible for her to truthfully express her feelings and just tell her to rest even if she was curious about Chika's date with Ishigami, especially when she heard how exhausted yet gentle Chika's voice was when Chika told her thoughts about her date with him, so as not to make her worry. Even though I should have felt nothing. How about you, Kaguya-san? Kaguya was startled by Chika's sudden question, wondering whether Ishigami had told Chika about how she would go out with Shirogane today, which made her panic. But how was your weekend? Did you have fun? It seemed she thought too much. Ah, yes, I did. Kaguya subconsciously said when she heard Chika's question. That's good. Chika smiled and said, but I am a little sleepy now, Kaguya-san. I will sleep first. Okay, sorry for bothering you, Fujiwara-san. It's fine. I am happy that you call me Kaguya-san. Thank you. Kaguya smiled softly before hanging up the call between them, then let out a long sigh. Her feelings were conflicted, yet at the same time, she just didn't know how to describe this feeling of hers. On her side, Hayasaka was as patient and loyal as ever, watching her mistress' expression and asking softly, "Did you have fun today, Kaguya-sama?" Kaguya only looked at Hayasaka and smiled softly without answering this question. Waking up in the morning, after doing a morning run, working out for a while, and eating breakfast, he left for school early as he had promised to Kobachi last night. The morning was cold, but fortunately, he wore an inner vest, so his body was quite warm. Walking from his usual path, he couldn't help but think about the reward he had gained from Chika. Congratulations, you have received voice. Was this a reward that made his voice better? This was the basic, and at the same time, this reward also helped him to produce a good sound on all musical instruments. To be honest, at this moment, his voice was probably far better than the deep and sexy voice of Shirogane Papa. When he thought about Chika's achievement in a piano during her childhood, he didn't feel surprised, but was this reward really that simple? When he thought Chika came from a political family, somehow, he felt, this ability could be developed further into brainwashing or even hypnosis. Like how someone in the German Empire could make everyone follow him for his great cause, with this ability, Ishigami felt that he could do better and made people follow him like the most devoted believers. While the example might be strange, he knew that the reward he gained from the heroines was somehow related to the character, identity, background, or anything within the heroines. If he gave an example, the Eyes of Wealth, he felt that he gained it because Kaguya came from the Shinomiya family, a family that led one of the wealthiest groups in this country. The Delicious, which he gained from Tsubame, was similar since her family worked in the food-related industry. Meanwhile, Kobachi was known as the most beautiful girl in Shounen Jump, so it was normal for him to gain a double charm. So, when Ishigami thought of Chika's background from a political family, he felt that the voice could be used to brainwash someone, which was kind of dangerous somehow. Still, while it was wrong, this also made him eager to make a move on various other girls. At the same time, he wondered whether all the other girls besides Chika could agree to what he wanted. Still, whatever their answer was, he had made up his mind to build his power for preparation since he really didn't want to be sent to a continent that was far away. At the same time, as he thought of many things inside his head when he was about to go to school, he saw a familiar back from a distance. The person he saw was a girl with long, beautiful white hair adorned with a frilly hairband, and from her white uniform, she should have been a middle school student of the Shuchian Academy. Even from a distance, he could see she appeared to be in distress, seemingly confused and hesitant as she looked at her bicycle, which was seemingly not working. When the girl wondered what to do, she heard a voice. What's wrong? Dash. A new day is a new encounter. Chapter 62, Washing Hands. Ah, Ishigami-san. When the girl turned, she was startled when she saw the familiar face, the junior of her big brother, the one that had seen her in lame clothes previously. You are Kaiku's little sister, right? Shirogane Kei-chan, right? While using san might be polite, Ishigami felt that it felt a bit too formal and awkward if he called Kei with the san suffix, considering her status as Shirogane's little sister. Yes, Ishigami-san. Should I call you senpai? After all, Ishigami was a high school student and was also her senior in her high school, so Kei thought to call him senpai. Senpai. Ishigami murmured and never thought that the ringing of the word senpai would be so wonderful. Knowing this feeling, he somehow understood why Tsubame's inside tightened when he called her senpai. Yet, he definitely couldn't express this thought of his, even though he could tell that Kei was a gentle and kind girl, and probably, she wouldn't judge him even if he felt a strange sensation on his body when she called by her senpai. Probably, she would just look at him in silence, with a mix of disgust. Wait. Why am I so perverted? Even though he felt regret for many things he had done, he had to say that it was hard for him to erase this nature of his, who sought to get close to a beautiful heroine. Sure, you can call me senpai, but do you mind if I call you Kei-chan? No, it's fine. While Kei was shy, she thought that since Ishigami was called by her first name, should she call him by his first name? While they had only met each other, she had heard Ishigami from her older brother, and she knew how close Ishigami and her big brother were. So, you senpai. Her voice was soft and gentle, and her pink lips slightly parted, showing her white teeth, when she called his name. Ishigami almost staggered, feeling strange inwardly, but he decided to calm himself and appeared nonchalant since he could see that Kei was embarrassed to call him by his first name, so what he had to do as someone who was older was to stay calm, as if telling her that there was nothing strange about how they called each other. So, what's wrong? When he approached Kei, he looked at her bike and quickly noticed the problem. Oh, is it the chain? Yes. While Kei was a little shy when Ishigami approached her, considering how handsome he was, some curiosity within her heart, she couldn't help but express her trouble when he asked. Let me help you. You should also watch it closely, so in case something similar happens, you can handle it. Ah, yes. Kei quickly nodded and agreed. Thank you, senpai. It's fine. Kaiko helped me a lot, after all. Shirogane had helped him a lot, so why shouldn't he help Kei? Still, with his skill, it was easy for him to fix the chains on Kei's bike, and Kei quickly understood how to fix the chains on her bike in case something similar happened due to his easy-to-understand explanation. More importantly, similar to her big brother, her IQ wasn't low or even better than Shirogane. Thank you, senpai. It's fine. However, Ishigami had noticed that many had passed Kei before, but no one was willing to help her. While it was cold, when he looked at his dirty hands, he knew well why no one was willing. Fixing chains meant that one's hands would become dirty by the oil, and it wasn't easy to wash the oil when it stuck on them. More importantly, they were either going home from overwork or just on their way to work. Either way, their positions really didn't give them any leeway to help others. It wasn't like he blamed them, but then again, this was a chance for an encounter to know a beautiful girl like Kei, yet no one was willing. Still, when he saw Kei's middle school student uniform, he became sober and understood everything. Ah, yes, please use this. Wipe your hands with this. Instead of wet wipes, Kei took out her handkerchief and gave it to him. It's fine. It will make your handkerchief dirty, and I can buy wet wipes at the convenience store or wash my hands at school later. No, please take it. You don't have to wash it. You can return it to me later. While Ishigami wanted to refuse, when he looked at Kei's eyes, he nodded. Thanks. No, it's fine. Kei, who had shown a serious expression, suddenly smiled softly. Ishigami also smiled softly, but this caused Kei to blush. Watching this, he realized the effect of a double charm was much greater than he had imagined, but then again, when he thought about what Onodera did on their first date after they met for the first time after he accepted this reward, he knew that his life was impossible to be a single guy and there would be many temptations in his life. Yet, no matter what he struggled with, he would do his best. Wiping his oil-stained hands with Kei's handkerchiefs, Ishigami decided to invite her to go to the school together, to which Kei agreed. The distance between the high school and the middle school of the Shuchiin Academy was close, and they could reach each other in 5 minutes. The two of them had also come quite early, and based on their speeds, it was okay for them to go to the school together. More importantly, he also wanted to know Kei better, talking about her school life and how she worked on the student council. Yes, similar to him, Kei was also a student council member, and like him, she was also a treasurer. As for the matters of her home, Ishigami decided not to say anything since he knew well that even if Kei might not be shy about her family's matter, telling it to others was a different matter. It's amazing that you came so early to work for the student council so early in the morning, Kei-chan. Anyway, Ishigami decided to praise her hard work ethic. No. It's nothing, and aren't you the same, senpai? You come to the school so early like me, after all. While Kei was happy, she also couldn't help but praise Ishigami's dedication to working hard for the student council. Ishigami could only fall in silence since he knew well that the reason he came to the school so early was due to an impure reason. Yet, he definitely couldn't say that, and fortunately, they had arrived at the school. Do your best, Kei-chan. Ah, yes, thank you, senpai. You, too, do your best. Also, please give me that handkerchief. You don't have to wash it. But. No, but. Okay. While Ishigami thought about washing the handkerchief before he returned it to Kei, he knew that it might be a little hard for them to meet each other, considering they studied in different places. Then, see you. Yes, senpai. Thank you for helping me earlier. It's fine. Waving his hand, Ishigami left Kei and walked toward the school before making a detour to the sink to wash his hands. Meanwhile, Kei didn't go to her school immediately but stared at Ishigami's back. She knew well that if there was a reason why Shirogane could go on a date with Kaguya, it was all due to Ishigami, and she was more than happy if she could have Kaguya as a sister-in-law, but then again, a strange thought appeared on her mind. What if Shirogane's brother-in-law was? Ah, she didn't dare to think about it. With a reddened face, Kei quickly ran away, afraid to continue her little dirty thoughts. Yet, Ishigami knew nothing about Kei's thoughts, and if he knew, he would just laugh since, in his mind, her reaction was like those guys who felt nervous and blushed when they talked with a beautiful woman. It was normal to feel nervous to talk with a handsome guy like him. How narcissistic. Shaking his head, Ishigami washed his hands in the quiet corner until suddenly he heard footsteps from the side. He turned and saw that it was Kobachi. Kobachi. After he greeted her, he continued to wash his hands, cleaning all the oils on them, but because of that, he didn't notice a slight change in Kobachi's eyes when she saw him for the first time. Like Chika, who was dumbfounded when she saw him on Sunday, Kobachi was the same, so she didn't hesitate and moved closer before she pulled his collars toward her. Ishigami was startled, but before he could say anything, his lips were taken. Her lips parted his lips and devoured his tongue greedily like someone who hadn't tasted water for so many days in the desert. While Ishigami was speechless, he had to say, this felt nice even if her movement was a little jerky, but how dare she? However, before he did his revenge, her lips suddenly parted, and she linked her arm against his naturally. Let's go to the library. Watching her moist and filled with temptation eyes, Ishigami fell in silence and glanced at her cherry, glistening lips. They had just kissed each other, and his saliva had stained her lips, giving him a strange feeling in his mind. Taking a deep breath, he said, "Wait a moment. Let me dry my hands first." After drying his hands, the two quickly went to the library to study. Nothing weird happens. Chapter 63, More, and More. In the same place, as they had kissed for the first time, their bodies entangled into each other as they fell into the rapture of kissing. The act of pressing each other's lips might be simple, but when it happened, the feeling and sensation they felt on their bodies were magical. At this moment, Kobachi couldn't think of anything except a kiss between them. Her hair and glasses were all messy and tangled, and she wanted to take them off since they were just in the way, but since Ishigami loved her when she wore her glasses, she decided to wear them. Did he have a glasses fetish, too? Regardless, she decided to think about that problem later as her tongue was played by him relentlessly, and she kept rubbing her body against his as she felt his 19 cm ruler had been poking against her buttocks. It might have pushed her skirt, making her slightly wet panties to be shown, yet she couldn't care about anything and just focused on this kiss as the joy that came from this kiss just couldn't be described by words. She was filled with an obsession, her body had learned this new pleasant feeling and sought him even further, hoping he would teach her more knowledge than she had just learned. More importantly, as it was their first meeting after a weekend of her longing for him, she didn't wish to stop. So, when she lost her breath, their lips would part for a moment before they continued their kiss. More, and more. It wasn't until 20 minutes later that she was so exhausted that she fell onto his chest, leaning on him but still stuck on his neck, rubbing it happily. Her expression was full of bliss, thinking how wonderful it was to kiss him. Ishigami also felt the same, but then, he had to say, this lower body was a little painful, considering how hard it was. Kissing level 4, 5/100. He never thought his kissing level would rise so high, but when he thought about his experience after he transmigrated, he also understood why he was so skillful in this area. Still, at the same time, as he was experienced, he no longer felt troubled by the heat on his body, especially when he had many who could help him. Stroking Kobachi's hair softly, Ishigami said, "Let's not do this." Ha! Kobachi quickly looked at him with contempt, especially when this guy loved her kiss so much. I mean, this place is too dangerous. The thrill that came from kissing each other in a sacred place like a library was nice, but the danger was high. The higher the risk, the higher the sensation. However, even if they changed the place of kissing to a lower risk place, he didn't think that the sensation they felt would be reduced. Your words aren't convincing when you are all hard like this. Don't touch that, okay? Kissing aside, touching is too dangerous. At the same time, Ishigami felt like he was that girl in the hentai manga who was being teased by the guy. Even if he said that he didn't want to, his body was honest, seeking more of the joy that came from doing this kind of wrong thing. Then, do you want to come to my house? Pressing her forehead to his, Kobachi looked at him softly. Is that okay? It is okay. Was there a point in renting a place then? Oh, no, he could use the money that was intended for renting from his father as more pocket money. Sighing, he thought that he really had the talent to become a corrupt bureaucrat or politician. However, when he thought about his plan to make money, he decided not to do it since money wouldn't be a problem for him soon. How about we go to the class now? Okay. Kobachi nodded, then asked, by the way, do you want to come to my house? Let's do that later. Kobachi fell silent, staring at him since she knew well that Ishigami must have realized why she had invited him to go to her house, but instead of being excited, he was a bit reluctant. Was it too fast for her to invite him into her place? However, when she thought that Onodera might take his virginity, she felt that she had to be in a hurry, or else his virginity would be taken by Onodera first. At the same time, she also thought of another question. Have you been on a date with Onodera till Sunday? Yup. Ishigami nodded without hesitation. You aren't bored? No. This expression. Kobachi stared at Ishigami for a moment as she recalled Onodera's story on Instagram. After Onodera uploaded her photo with Ishigami in the bookstore, Onodera didn't upload anything again since she didn't want anyone to interrupt their date. When Kobachi thought about this situation and when she looked at his handsome face, which had become so handsome that he might be the most handsome man on the Shonen Jump, her heart became tense, and she felt her chest so tight, but regardless, she asked, did you sleep with her? Ishigami blinked his eyes and then nodded. Yes. While he wanted to lie, he knew that it was impossible, especially when Kobachi would see Onodera's state later. Still, instead of from her lips, she showed her reaction through action and directly tried to make him naked by pulling his uniform. Unfortunately, her actions were unsuccessful, especially when she lacked the strength to force him. Wait. Wait. Still, Kobachi didn't say anything and just stared at him with reddened eyes and tears. You don't like me. I like you. Then, let's do it. No. Why? Because I want to think. Kobachi looked at Ishigami and asked, do you want to act like a Yasashi harem protagonist? Who will say that I will regret my action? No, to be honest, I want to sleep with you, too. Kobachi had shown what she wished for, and Ishigami never hesitated when he wanted to do it. Then, I just want to think about how to be responsible for you. Ishigami looked at Kobachi and asked, do you want me to just sleep with you and treat you like a place for comfort, my pent-up desire, or a sex toy? I don't mind. Strangely enough, Kobachi blushed shyly when she heard that Ishigami wanted to treat her like a meat toilet. Ishigami fell silent and realized that, unlike men, most women were messed up in their heads. They had this tendency to destroy their perfect life, but then again, considering Kobachi's background and history, he felt like it was possible. At the same time, her thoughts toward him never changed, even if he wasn't the original Ishigami. In her mind, he had always been that gentle guy who wouldn't betray her. Hugging her softly in his arms, Ishigami said, how about we have a date this weekend? Is that okay? Yes. Ishigami nodded. If your mind doesn't change, then let's do it. Feeling his gentle kiss on her hair, Kobachi clung to him tightly, leaning on him, then asked, by the way, can we stay for a night, too? While it was a little troublesome, Ishigami decided to agree to her invitation to have a full weekend date. As for where they would go, they would decide later after a day of research since there was no doubt their destination would be outside of Tokyo. Naturally, Kobachi was full of excitement since she knew that she could monopolize him on the weekend. She was full of happiness, but soon, that happy mood was turned upside down, especially you. The moment Ishigami returned to class, he was hugged by Onodera, who acted like a spoiled baby, and watched him pampering Onodera softly and gently. Kobachi never said anything and just quietly stared at them as her nails dug deeply into her palms. Yet, when she thought about how she would monopolize him this weekend, her fists slowly loosened, and an indescribable smile appeared on her beautiful smile. The only problem was one girl just stared at Ishigami in silence from a distance, ignoring everything in his surroundings without saying a single word. Chapter 64, What Should I Do? As the weekend had ended, everyone had to go to school once again. Even if some didn't want to, many were still excited about going to school, but then again, while the first lesson was fine, the second lesson, when they had a physical education lesson, they lamenting why they were single, especially after they saw how close Ishigami and Onodera were. If they weren't single, would they be tormented like this? Fortunately, their teacher separated the guys and girls during the lesson, or else they would continue to see how the two would be together all the time. Ishigami, how can you make her so crazy about you? Tell us your secret. Did you learn a seduction technique from a master? Or are you a hidden master? While Ishigami was troubled by the boys, who wished to learn how he could make Onodera so crazy to fall in love with him, the girls were more straightforward, especially when they noticed the change in Onodera. Onodera wasn't like any of them, especially since she had appeared more charming. The youthful part of her had disappeared, and she had become an adult woman who knew the taste of sexuality. More importantly, the happiness that was given by her boyfriend still remained within her body, and when she thought about what had happened before, her womb trembled, and her eyes drew toward his 19 cm white marker. Unlike boys, who felt nothing after they released the pent-up energy in their bodies, what women felt was more amazing than anything. Inside their inner place, there were millions of nerves that gave them pleasure that could make them die. At the same time, when they felt it, this feeling would remain with them for a week or so. When a man had marked and conquered a woman, even if their hearts said otherwise, their bodies were more than willing. Unlike men, many women were sensitive toward this matter, so they couldn't help but ask Onodera softly. Onodera, you have become more beautiful now. What's happening? Did you change your makeup? Onodera, how have you done that with Ishigami? What do you mean? All of them could tell that a change had happened between Ishigami and Onodera, and while they had their guess within their minds, they couldn't help but ask this question to Onodera as some of them took a peek at Ishigami, who was running on the field. However, Onodera only smiled at their questions and remained ambiguous. While she wanted to tell the world, telling all of them that her man was amazing and how much she loved him, she didn't want to make her man be troubled by those girls in the class and others. More importantly, she could see how dishonest the eyes of many girls were when they asked about her boyfriend. Similar to Onodera, all the girls also noticed the change in Ishigami, and because of that, many of them couldn't look away from him. It was like how Kobachi was troubled by many men, and some men even waited outside the school for her due to her beautiful face. Ishigami, whose charm was doubled, also had a similar treatment. As his girlfriend, Onodera could naturally see how everyone's treatment toward him had changed so much after she uploaded his photo on her Instagram, and while she was quite proud and happy by how jealous everyone was toward her, she also felt defensive, especially when it was common to see for a female friend to steal the boyfriend of their friend. Still, while she remained ambiguous, the others were still persistent, but fortunately. Hey, stop playing around. We are still in the middle of class. As usual, when everyone didn't follow the rules, Aino would make a move and scold those who broke the rules. While those who were scolded knew that they were wrong, naturally, they felt unhappy and annoyed by Aino, who always acted like a good girl. More importantly, unlike the guys, who were told to run on the field, the girls were told to play tennis, and it was perfectly normal for them to slack off. Yet, how could Aino let them do that? While the others wanted to fight Aino, telling her that many girls were playing around during the tennis, Onodera quickly moved toward Aino and said, Aino, can you play with me? Ah! Aino was startled, but she nodded after a moment of hesitation. Okay. But let's play softly, okay? My legs are still a bit uncomfortable. Aino. Meanwhile, Ishigami knew nothing about what had troubled Onodera. Instead, he just ran in a relaxed manner in the field, leaving those otaku with limited stamina behind. Still, not everyone was an otaku, but young people except for those who were part of the sports club lacked exercise, especially when they could easily enjoy their time indoors. However, Ishigami enjoyed running since he ran, he felt like he forgot everything. His body became light, and all the burdens on his body disappeared. In his mind, he only focused on the movement of his body, from his breathing, arms, legs, and even waist. Everything was linked and connected to each other, which created a wonderful feeling within his body. Still, when he ran, he noticed a familiar figure in the class who appeared to look at him from her class. He smiled from a distance and waved his hand, greeting the pink-haired senior, who had taken his first time. Naturally, this senior waved her hand with a smile in his direction, feeling happy at how he had noticed her. Nevertheless, neither of them talked to each other, especially when they were still in the middle of the class. However, when he continued to run, the woman's eyes kept staring at him without looking away. Her lips subconsciously formed into a sweet smile, but strangely enough, that smile was slightly lewd, yet that smile quickly disappeared when she saw his girlfriend approach him and talk with him happily. Ishigami knew nothing about it, but even if he knew, he could do nothing since the fact that he had a girlfriend didn't change. Yet, even if they knew that he had a girlfriend, they still made a move on him, so who was to blame? Was it he who couldn't resist their temptation? Or was it them who made a move even if they knew he had a girlfriend? I am all sweaty now. It's fine. You smell good. Pervert. It's fine. Even if Ishigami was a little sweaty, Onodera didn't care much. You are my boyfriend, after all. As Onodera hugged Ishigami's back, she glanced in the direction where he had waved his hand previously and showed a gentle smile at that woman, who he greeted previously. The woman. Still, while Onodera was chummy, Ishigami didn't say anything and was so patient with her, especially when he knew how sensitive she was at that moment. She had given him her first time, and even though 2 days had passed after that day, he knew that she still felt it. Though. What's wrong, Aino? Don't look at me like a pervert. Ishigami felt speechless by Aino, who stared at him with a gaze of anger. It is because you are one. Aino gritted her teeth, but not because of Ishigami, but... Anyway, you can't do something perverted at school. If so, if they did, then, her heart. We won't do that. What do you think of us? Yet. We won't. Onodera nodded, then looked at her boyfriend and whispered softly, we won't. Ishigami fell into silence and stared at his girlfriend, who looked at him playfully. While it was good that their relationship was close and he knew that she loved him, they knew well that after this, they would be scolded by Aino with all of her might. How shameless! Fortunately, the teacher came and arranged for everyone to attend the next lesson, but unfortunately, this teacher asked him to move something to the student council room. While Ishigami was speechless, he didn't say much since he understood why this teacher asked him, so when the class ended, he also decided to take his uniform with him and change in the student council room so he wouldn't waste much time. More importantly, it was also a good chance for him to talk to Shirogane and Kaguya about their date on Sunday. Their relationship should be much closer now. When he thought so, he arrived at the student council room and started to change his uniform. It was just when he was about to change his uniform and wear his shirt that the door of the room was opened. Shinomiya-senpai. Ishigami was quite awkward, especially when he was still a boxer. Kaguya was also stunned since she didn't expect to see him half-naked with just a black boxer that wrapped on his toned buttocks tightly and a naked upper body that showed his trained body with obvious six-packs and V-lines. Ishigami's physical ability might be only a level 2, but it almost reached a level 3, and along with double charm, it might not be wrong to say he was Adonis in the modern world. However, while she was stunned and felt something come out of her nose, she closed the door with a click and locked it. Ishigami. Nothing will happen. Chapter 65, The Best. Why did you lock the door? Ishigami screamed inwardly when he saw Kaguya suddenly lock the door. Like a mouse that met a hungry cat in the middle of its stroll, he was stunned and nervous when he saw her. More importantly, at this moment, he was just wearing his boxer. Could he say, Kaie, a pervert? Definitely not. While he had received many rewards from the system, he knew well that his power was limited in front of Kaguya, so he knew, if she forced herself on him, then... Just kidding. Ishigami knew that he might jump to conclusions, but even so, he had to admit that Kaguya was so bold. Especially when he noticed how her eyes kept appreciating his body without being shy. Yet, when he thought about how Kaguya touched and stroked his 19 cm carrot, he also understood that this was nothing. Senpai, what are you planning to do? Ishigami appeared nervous as he held his white shirt close to his bare body like a chaste girl who was being molested by a rogue. Haha. Watching his nervous expression, Kaguya felt happy somehow, feeling as if she had won something. What are you afraid of? Hurry up and put on your uniform. I locked the door so no one would peek at you. If so, then couldn't you just close the door and wait outside? Ishigami knew how the capitalist worked, so he wasn't fooled by Kaguya. Being a capitalist meant that they had to stand above others and had people follow their orders obediently. While using force and being harsh might be effective, it would cause resentment and a lack of energy, so a gentle method was created. While they might say sweet things, the truth is they just want people to work for them like a puppy who wagged their tail happily. This was also the reason why the method of a carrot and a stick was popular. Still. Senpai, can you not look at me? What's wrong? Are you shy? I am. Ishigami was speechless, wondering how Kaguya thought that he wasn't shy. Kaguya laughed again, but this time, she followed his wish and turned her head. Come on. Hurry up and put on your uniform. I won't peek. There were many things that Ishigami wanted to say, but in the end, he let out a helpless sigh and just continued to wear his uniform. Who made him so weak and poor? When I get so wealthy, I will get my revenge. If it had been before, Ishigami might not have been so playful, but after Kaguya went on a date with Shirogane, he knew that her love for Shirogane must have resurfaced and returned to how it used to be. The funny love story between the two had begun once again. As the spectator and the Cupid between the two, Ishigami wished to watch them from the VIP seat, and he knew that their relationship had returned to how it used to be. A senior and a junior. A normal one, and not like the one with sub-aim. Knowing that, even if their exchange was a bit playful, it was far better than being awkward. Frankly, after their separation, Ishigami had prepared for their relationship to be cut, and the two of them maintained a professional attitude toward each other as members of the student council. Nothing more and nothing less. So, knowing that everything had returned to how it used to be, he was glad inwardly. Yet, as he changed his clothes, Kaguya turned her head and stared at him blatantly. Ishigami might think that she would follow her words, but he was so naive and defenseless, so don't blame her for being ruthless. Her eyes were glued to him, never looking away or blinking, staring at his defenseless back. She could see how perfect his body was, trained every day with discipline and power, yet even so, it still retained a beauty that could be appreciated by everyone, unlike a bulky muscle that many felt disgusted with. While some people loved the bulky figures, the majority weren't into them. At the same time, under that black boxer, she could see how good the shape of his buttocks was, which made her have an urge to touch them, kneading them tightly with her palms. His waist was the right size, connected with his six-packs and powerful chest, which made her unable to look away. More importantly, his face had become so handsome that it made her bite her lower lip as she stared at his profile from behind. Yet, there was no doubt that the one thing that attracted her the most was that obvious bulge within his boxer. Even though many days had passed, Kaguya still remembers the feeling of a 19 cm carrot within her palms. Touching, stroking, and grasping, she did all of that, yet she was still unsatisfied since the fabric from his pants made her unable to fully touch it, and she saw the real thing behind. Her eyes were glazed and melting, like nymphomaniacs, as she bit her lower lip, squeezing her white, slender thighs tightly as if trying to hold something. Charm comes from many things, such as wealth, intelligence, appearance, and many others. Yet, there was no doubt that this appearance was the most special one. Wealth can be gained as long as one works hard or hurts others. Intelligence can be gained as long as they study. However, appearance was the only thing that could be gained from birth. While there might be a beauty product and even plastic surgery, people sought something natural instead of a fake. Some fakes might be even better than natural ones, but regardless, if there was a better original, who would one choose? After all, unlike plastic surgery, the appearance of the natural one could be inherited. Ishigami's appearance was at the level of Kobachi, who was known as the most beautiful heroine on the jump, and when he was like this, if he wished for it, he could just live by relying on his appearance. More importantly, his 19 cm was impossible to be duplicated by anyone unless one had black magic. So, there was no doubt that his existence was like a treasure, but unfortunately, that treasure couldn't be obtained by her. As Kaguya stared at Ishigami, she couldn't help but think about their first meeting and how in a mess he was. Unlike the others, she saw him from the beginning when he was nothing, then grew into such a charming, exceptional young man. Not only from the appearance, Kaguya knew well that Ishigami had to train hard to achieve such a powerful body, and at the same time, she also knew that even if she wasn't by his side, he continued to study hard to show his determination. As he grew and became an existence that everyone longed for, someone who every girl wished to be with. Yet, instead of being happy with his improvement, Kaguya stared at him without emotion, completely blank, erasing all of the previous thoughts before all of a sudden, her expression and emotions completely changed into a warm, gentle senior. Oh, this senior was slightly strict. Still, this was for the best, she thought. Chapter 66, Tight. I heard that you have a girlfriend, Ishigami-kun. Ishigami, who put his gikurin on, stopped for a moment, then looked at Kaguya and nodded with a soft expression. I do. From whom did Kaguya hear that he had a girlfriend? There was no need to ask such a question since he was sure that there was only one person who would tell Kaguya. Did you hear it from Chika-senpai? You could guess it easily, hey. I think that there is no one that will tell you that except for that silly senior. Well, even if you have a girlfriend, you still go on a date with Fujiwara-san, hey? More importantly, did you call her by her first name? Ishigami shivered, then glanced behind, watching Kaguya, who had anticipated his gaze. Unlike her previous gentle and mischievous expression, this time, her expression was a little cold. I wanted to refuse before, but she forced me to go. This time, there was no need for him to hesitate and put all the blame on Chika since this silly girl really caused him trouble everywhere. At the same time, he wondered whether Chika had told Kaguya about what he did, asking Chika to date him even if he had a girlfriend. While he was helpless, he knew that this was also the consequence of his actions for being greedy. In the eyes of others, this might be wrong, but then again, he didn't regret it. After all, even if he became the existence that was loathed by the previous Ishigami, this was something that he had chosen, especially when he sought the rewards from the system. The rewards were a good thing for him, and while he might be hated, he wanted to get more. His actions might hurt many, and he might say that he would compensate them in his own way, but then there was no doubt that it might cause resentment, and it was impossible for him to stop, so the only way for him to handle all of this, was to go on and take responsibility if they wished to. However, if they really couldn't accept it, then even if it was hard, he could only leave since staying with them would bring them torment instead of happiness. Still, instead of facing a problem in the future, he had to face the problem in the present, or else he would have to leave this country tonight if he made a wrong answer. You really love your girlfriend, hey? As he observed Kaguya's expression, he could see her complicated expression, realizing that Chika didn't say anything to Kaguya, which made him kind of relieved. He thought that with Chika's mouth, nothing could remain hidden, but it seemed she was more reliable than he had thought. Chika. Still, if Chika didn't even tell her best friend, Kaguya, then how could Ishigami tell her? While Ishigami had made up his mind, and this might be a social norm within those people with high positions, he knew well that most people didn't see this action of his in a good light, so to answer Kaguya's question, he could only show a gentle smile without saying anything. This answer made Kaguya grind her teeth tightly, which made Ishigami feel helpless and doubtful. Why did you show me such an expression? Had her love really returned to Shirogane? While this was what he wanted to believe, he suddenly hesitated, especially when he saw her with such an expression, but suddenly, all of that disappeared and became the mischievous smile of his beautiful senior. I see. Kaguya nodded, then asked, by the way, why did you date her? Your first impression of her wasn't that good, right? Why did you date such a girl when Fujiwara-san would have been a better choice for you? Compared to his current girlfriend, Kaguya felt that Chika was better. After all, while Chika might be a silly girl, she wasn't like Onodera, who had mocked him in the beginning, so this confused Kaguya. Why did Ishigami choose someone like Onodera? If it was someone else, Ishigami would find this question troublesome, but it wasn't the case with Kaguya. I guess. I just want to move on, and she's just happened to be there when I needed someone. Hearing that expression as Kaguya stared at his soft expression, she couldn't help but fall into silence, thinking of their previous exchange in the beginning. Initially, he often teased her that he liked her and even confessed to her, but Kaguya knew that this was his joke. Or was it the truth? Yet, even if this wasn't a joke, and this was what he truly felt, Kaguya knew that it was impossible for him to make a move on her. Why? Wasn't it obvious? Shirogane Miyuki. Because of him, Ishigami had never thought to get closer to Kaguya more than needed, yet instead of having maintained a relationship between a junior and a senior, the two felt more than that. More importantly, from the beginning to the end, Ishigami knew that she had fallen for Shirogane, so he had never thought that it was possible to make her fall in love, yet, why did everything change? I wonder when it is. Previously, Kaguya had always thought that everyone had hidden intentions whenever they approached her. As the daughter of the current head of the Shinomiya family, many people came to her without good intentions, and all of them had a hidden purpose whenever they approached her, but everything changed when Chika approached her for the first time, or when Shirogane started to challenge her to become the first grader in the school. For the first time in her life, she knew that there was someone who approached her just because of who she was instead of her family. Still, because of that, she gained a best friend and learned to like someone for the first time, even if she couldn't admit it. Yet, when everything was moving in a good direction, Ishigami came into her life without hiding his intention, hoping she would help him. By then, the two continued to interact with each other, and the two realized the importance of each other. However, instead of pressing forward, hoping she could be his, Ishigami gave her up and just wished for her happiness from the side. As he tried to move on and get a girlfriend, why couldn't she move on and just return to how it used to be? Ah, why you are like this? If Ishigami was that pathetic junior that she always needed to watch, then would she feel like this? If he doesn't work hard and change, then nothing will change. Unfortunately, he had changed, and this also made her feelings start to change. However, for the happiness of the person who had saved him from his most pathetic moment, Ishigami decided to move on and give her up since he knew that person loved her, yet she... Is it locked? The two were stunned when they heard the door was about to be opened and the familiar voice of the person who wanted to open the door. Is there someone inside? Ishigami? Shinomiya? Or it must be you, right, Fujiwara-san? Don't play around within the student council room. While Shirogane tried to scold Chika for making a little prank, Kaguya and Ishigami looked at each other, and their expressions were far from calm. Still, Ishigami took a deep breath and calmed himself since he knew that he hadn't done anything wrong with Kaguya, so he thought to open the door, but when he was about to reach the door, he suddenly felt the time had stopped. No, he didn't gain a superpower, or he was hit by a time-stop hentai-like power, but he was stunned since Kaguya suddenly hugged him tightly. Gulp. Senpai. His voice was quiet, so only Kaguya could hear it. Don't say anything. Just stay like this. Similarly, Kaguya's voice was also quiet as she tightly clung to him from behind. The two remained fixed within their position, with Kaguya quietly hugging him from behind. Chapter 67, Ishigami, I want to go home. It's weird. Is there really no one inside? Shirogane was confused, but in the end, he decided to give up and decided to go to the staff room since he didn't bring the key. However, inside the student council room, Ishigami could feel his heart beating so fast, wondering what kind of situation he was caught in. In front of this door was Shirogane, the one who had saved him and the one who loved Kaguya the most in the world, yet here he was, being hugged by Kaguya. If Shirogane knew, then... Ishigami didn't dare to imagine, especially when he knew how fragile Shirogane's mind was. Lowering his head, he could see her slender, white arms that tightly clung to him, slightly trembling due to nervousness, which made him calm. In this situation, he knew that he shouldn't panic, and what he had to do was quietly wait until Shirogane left. Senpai, Kaiko isn't here anymore. When Shirogane left, Ishigami had to remind Kaguya that she hadn't let him go. While he didn't directly say what he wanted to say, he knew that she should have understood the meaning behind his words. Still, while he knew that this was wrong, the situation made it hard for him to stay calm. The gentle scent from her, the softness of her body, and her hands that were almost touching the part that shouldn't be touched anymore, all of those factors made him recall their last exchange in the empty classroom. In that room, except for the two of them, Hayasaka was there, but even so, Kaguya tenderly held his 19 cm carrot. That thought occupied his mind before he calmed himself and couldn't help but remind Kaguya for the second time. Senpai. Sorry, Ishigami. I am just nervous and don't know what to do. When Kaguya let him go, she said those words softly, showing how nervous she was. No, you are right. I might have made the wrong decision before. Unlike him, who thought that they didn't think anything wrong, Kaguya might not be able to calm herself when she had to meet Shirogane directly. After all, the two had stayed in the student council room alone and locked the door even if the door of this room wasn't supposed to be locked. Even if they didn't do anything wrong, there was this guilty feeling that somehow emerged within their hearts. However, while Ishigami was calm and had thought of a way to solve this situation, Kaguya should have panicked, thinking that he was too hasty, especially when his image hadn't been known to be reliable. While he felt a bit helpless, Kaguya's reaction was understandable. This was what he truly wished to believe instead of the other possibility that he didn't want to think. Then, I will go back now. Be careful. Don't say something weird. I won't. While Ishigami was a bit nervous, he turned his head to see Kaguya's expression, and, watching her smile that was filled with helplessness, he sighed in relief, then left quietly after making sure that no one was around. See you later. See you later. Meanwhile, Kaguya stayed there alone as she took a long, deep breath. Senpai. Ishigami knew that Kaguya was attractive, and he also owed a lot of things to her, but even so, he didn't dare to approach her. Kaguya's family aside, the thought of making a move on the heroine who was loved by the person who had saved him during his most pathetic moment made him feel disgusted at himself. Yes, Ishigami knew that he might not be a good person, but even so, he had a bottom limit. Ah, Ishigami! Ishigami, who was looking down, was startled when he heard this voice. When he looked up, he quickly adjusted his mind and greeted this person with a gentle smile. Kaiku! Did you just come from the student council? Shirogane showed a helpless expression and said, Fujiwara-san must have locked the door, but you don't have to worry. I have brought the key. When he said so, he showed the key to the student council room that he had picked up. That's good. Ishigami smiled as if he was glad that Shirogane had picked up the key. Still, at this moment, when there were only the two of them, he didn't hesitate and asked, by the way, Kaiku, how was the date plan that I have made? Did you have fun yesterday? As expected, there was this kind of expression on Shirogane's face when he heard Ishigami's question, but then again, while he had expected this, the happy smile on his face couldn't be hidden. Well, it wasn't bad at all. If you bring the one you like with the date plan, I think that it will be okay. Really? Yes. Shirogane patted Ishigami's shoulder and showed a gentle smile on his face. So, do your best. Yes. Still, while Shirogane tried to encourage his junior, he couldn't help but think about his love life, which was a mess. Unlike Ishigami, who dared to express his feelings, he didn't dare at all, and if possible, he wanted Kaguya to make the first move. Was he a coward? Some might think so, but if Ishigami knew what Shirogane thought, he would shake his head since it was perfectly normal for one to feel nervous about expressing their feelings since no one wanted to be rejected and waiting for their loved one to make a move was the sure way to win in this type of battle. By the way, I heard that you met Kei-chan this morning. Suddenly, Shirogane changed the topic of the conversation. Ishigami was stunned and lost his chance to ask about how Shirogane's date with Kaguya was, but he nodded without much thought. There was a problem with the chain on her bike this morning, and I helped her. Thank you, Ishigami. She told me that you had helped her earlier. This morning, when Shirogane came to the school, he quickly received a call from his little sister, who told him that Ishigami had helped her. Moreover, she also asked him about Ishigami, and he told her what kind of person this junior was. If it was before, Shirogane might not have thought much, and he was just glad that Ishigami had helped his little sister when she was troubled. However, his father's words before made him troubled, especially when he thought that there might be a chance for a love to bloom between Kei and Ishigami, especially with this encounter this morning. So, say, Ishigami, what do you think of Kei-chan? Kei-chan. Ishigami thought for a moment and said, she is a serious and gentle girl, I think. She might be a little stubborn, but that's because I know that she cares about others, so overall, I think she is a good girl. While he felt weird about why Shirogane asked him this question, Ishigami honestly answered it. Shirogane was dumbfounded, but then, while he was struggling, he decided to ask. Do you like her? Do you think I will make a move on a middle school student? Ishigami quickly realized where this conversation was going. There is only a 2-year difference between you two. Ishigami's lips twitched when he saw Shirogane suddenly become stubborn. He said, then, do you want me to become your brother-in-law or something, Kaiku? He thought that Shirogane would scold him, but unexpectedly, there was no hesitation in his answer. I know you well, so if you really like her, then I hope that you can treat her well. Instead of having a strange guy seduce his little sister, Shirogane felt like it was better for his little sister to be with Ishigami, especially when he knew Ishigami well. What the fuck did you talk about? Ishigami's lips twitched, but then someone suddenly interrupted him to make an answer. Kaiku, I think that it is impossible for him to become your brother-in-law. 2x. The two turned and saw Kaguya, who happened to walk out from the corridor. While Shirogane was surprised and felt a bit shy, Ishigami felt awkward. Oh, why is that? Well, Ishigami has a girlfriend, after all. When those words fell, Ishigami wanted to go back to his class. Chapter 68, Girls are Troublesome. While Ishigami wanted to go back, as he had met such a troublesome situation, Tsubame was absent-minded after she came to the school, especially after her last exchange with Ishigami. Who was wrong back then? Was it she who had seduced him? Or was it him who couldn't hold on? Yet, even so, Tsubame didn't feel regret about her decision, especially when she thought about how fierce and awesome he was that day. Whenever she thought about it, she couldn't help but bite her finger, squeezing her plump thighs as her panties became slightly wet due to the obscene thought she had. Sub-aim, what's wrong with you? Your expression is like a slut. While Sub-aim stayed absent-minded, her two best friends naturally noticed the change within her. Even though she didn't say anything, her expression said everything. She was still that cheerful and extroverted woman that everyone looked up to, but there was this sensuality and alluring aura that somehow exuded from her body. Stop showing such an expression, okay? The guys are going crazy. The two saw nothing weird this morning, only a slight strangeness, but as the afternoon came, this best friend of theirs started to get weird, which made them worried and curious. What was happening? Why did she become like this? If there was a reason, they could only come up with one reason, and that was the junior that Sub-aim often talked about, but was it? What? Really? Did I show such an expression? Still, after the reminder of her two best friends, Sub-aim became embarrassed and quickly looked around, noticing many were staring at her before looking away in embarrassment, causing her to blush and lower her head shyly. I'm not a dirty woman. Yet, if she wasn't one, what was she? After all, she had seduced her junior, and they even happily practiced gymnastics together. His 19 cm gymnastic club was so vivid Indiana her mind, and she even enjoyed it, licking the tip and the shaft like a lollipop. Ugh! Begone, dirty mind! What's wrong, Sub-aim? Hearing that question, Sub-aim looked up at her two best friends, who looked at her worriedly. Yume Tenbo and Shizuku Asahi. Similar to Sub-aim, Yume had a salacious body, but unlike Sub-aim, she didn't maintain her body that well. It gave her a mature, gentle and soft aura that made many call her mama. On the other hand, Shizuku had her hair short and wore glasses, and from her expression, it was easy to see that she was a kind and pushover girl. Like Sub-aim, the two were also flawed in their own ways. Still, the fact that they cared for each other didn't change. Did that junior do something weird to you? Yume asked with a frown, and her closed eyes were slightly opened, showing how serious she was. Do you need my help? Shizuku also had a serious expression in her eyes and said, I can kill him socially. No. Don't do anything to Yukun. Yukun is innocent. Sub-aim panicked when she heard the words of the two. Yume, aside from being the granddaughter of a high-ranking Shinto priest, Shizuku's father was the chief editor of the Asahi newspaper, which was one of the biggest newspapers in this country. Still, the fact that the two had quite an influence on the school didn't change, and if they wished to, they could make trouble for Ishigami. However, how could Sub-aim let them do that? Then, what's wrong? Watching their cornered expression, Sub-aim sighed helplessly and said, well, can we talk somewhere else? Let's talk in my fortune teller club room, Yume quickly said. I will get snacks and drinks from my club, too, Shizuku also added. Sub-aim's lips twitched, wondering whether they really had the intention to listen to her story, but then again, she really needed someone to talk to since she really didn't know what to do, especially with what kind of a horrible thing that she had done, yet she never regretted it since with her action, she got Ishigami's virginity. Still, Yume and Shizuku, who heard Sub-aim's story, were dumbfounded. What? You did what? I seduced him. 2x. Frankly, there was nothing wrong with Sub-aim's actions since she liked Ishigami, and it was her decision to seduce him. If she was happy, then they wouldn't say anything, but the problem was that Ishigami had a girlfriend. In the first grade, while Onodera wasn't the most beautiful girl, she was relatively popular, and Ishigami, who was chosen as a member of a student council, along with many things that happened to him lately, made him one of the most talked about boys within the school, so when the two dated, naturally, it became a talk of many. Yet, the two had never thought that their best friend would seduce Ishigami. What should they say in this situation? Shizuku, who had no experience with love, was silent, but Yume was straightforward and asked directly, did you two sleep together? While Shizuku was dumbfounded, Sub-aim nodded shyly. 2x. Shizuku couldn't say anything and fell into a daze by Sub-aim's answer, but Yume's emotion was like a fire that was poured by gasoline, it was impossible to stop her curiosity. So, how was it? Amazing. Sub-aim bit her lower lip when she recalled the time she had gymnastic training with Ishigami. Her eyes were moist, her body was hot, and she felt every part of her body was sensitive, especially when the sensation that was given by him remained within her body. She knew that it was wrong, yet she couldn't forget about it, and her body kept seeking him. Hearing Tsubame's story, Shizuku and Yum squeezed their thighs subconsciously. Yet, even so, they knew what Tsubame did was wrong, they were clear about that, and Tsubame must be clear about it, too. Still, as their friends, they hoped for Tsubame to be happy, so. What do you plan to do? Will you steal him from his girlfriend? As Yum asked, Shizuko looked at Yum in disbelief. Yum. I mean, I am not wrong, right? You can see how Tsubame has fallen for that junior of hers. All was fair in love and war, she thought. If Ishigami was the one who was wrong, Yum would scold Tsubame, but it was Tsubame who was wrong, and at the same time, Onodera wasn't her friend, so while it was unfair, she wished for Tsubame's happiness more. Well. Tsubame hesitated, but then she said, I think that it is okay to be like this. Hey. 2x. You are okay with this, you mean, you want to be his sex friend? Yum. I mean, am I wrong? If Tsubame didn't wish for a relationship, yet even so, she wanted to have sex with Ishigami, then if their relationship wasn't a sex friendship, then what was it? Sex friend. Tsubame murmured that word as she thought about what she wanted to do with Ishigami. Yes, she clearly knew what she wanted to do with Ishigami, but she knew that everything was too late, especially when he had dated Onodera. Then, shouldn't she wait for them to break up? Somehow, such a thought didn't cross her mind since she could imagine that Onodera definitely wouldn't let Ishigami go. More importantly, how long had they dated? Still, there were a couple who broke up in an hour or more, so it wasn't weird for Ishigami and Onodera to break up. However, once again, Tsubame could see how much Onodera loved Ishigami, and at the same time, she didn't want to become an existence similar to her former best friend, who stole the boyfriends of others, even though she had become one. Still, while Shizuko was confused by Tsubame's reaction and wondered why Tsubame was willing to become a sex friend, Yum looked at Tsubame for a moment and asked, Say, Tsubame. Can you let me sleep with him? 2x. Meanwhile, at the middle school of Shueichin Academy, Kei was in a daze for a while, clearly distracted by something, until suddenly she was approached by her best friend. Kei. What? Kei was startled, then looked helplessly at a cute girl with a twin-tail hairstyle. What's wrong, Moha? Can you go with me to the high school student area? Why do you want to go there? Is it a student council job? No, my big sister just got a boyfriend, and I want to see her boyfriend. Hey? Really? Chikane got a boyfriend? Moha nodded eagerly and said, I want to talk with him later. You know who it is? Kei didn't reject it since she was also curious about Chika's boyfriend. I am not sure. I only saw his back when I stalked them yesterday, and I didn't see his face clearly, but he is so handsome. Kei wasn't sure, but inwardly, she didn't think that Chika's boyfriend was as handsome as Ishigami. Still, no matter what, there was no doubt that, with all the situations around him, Ishigami was in danger. Chapter 69, I can't. I see, you have made a girlfriend. Shirogane murmured as he fell into shock since he didn't expect this junior, who relied on him all the time, would beat him first in matters of love. See, congratulations. Who is she? Do I know her? Still, while he felt conflicted, he was happy that Ishigami could be happy. Regardless, this junior really gave him a surprise. Her name is Onodera Rei. You might not be familiar with her, but she is my classmate. I see. Watching Ishigami's awkward expression, Shirogane felt like he was being deceived. He thought that Ishigami was a novice, a virgin monster, someone who hadn't had a relationship in his entire life, yet this guy had a girlfriend before him. More importantly, if Ishigami had dated Onodera, then what was the point of having him go on a date with Kaguya? Ishigami also felt embarrassed since he wanted to tell them that he had a girlfriend with his own mouth, but unexpectedly, Kaguya exposed the news at the most awkward moment. We dated after I asked for your help to check my dating plan, Kaiku, Shinomiya-senpai. I see. Hearing Ishigami's explanation, Shirogane sighed in relief. At the same time, he really wasn't sure what to say except I see. Meanwhile, Kaguya frowned when she heard how Ishigami called her, but she didn't say anything and remained silent. So, how did you two date? Did you confess to her? Heating, Ishigami wondered whether he should have told the truth, but when he noticed Kaguya's gaze on him, he took a deep breath and said, yes. He decided to lie without hesitation, telling the two the progress of how he dated Onodera. She invited me out during the weekend, and then at the end of the date, I confessed my feelings, which she accepted. I see. Even if Shirogane didn't see how Ishigami's date was, he could see that it must have been nerve-wracking for Ishigami to confess his feelings to Onodera. Still, this was also giving him a chance to ask about Ishigami's experience. Weren't you afraid to be rejected? Isn't it obvious? Of course, I do. Then, why did you confess? Feeling their gazes on him, Ishigami felt like being a Cupid for the two was really exhausting, especially when he had to make a lie. While he was used to making lies, it was quite exhausting to lie, after all. At that time, I thought that it was wonderful to be with her, and I wanted to have more such an experience with her, so I confessed to her, telling her that I wanted her to be my girlfriend. Gulp. 2x. Then, she agreed. Fortunately, yes. Ishigami nodded. I thought that I might have used all of my luck at that time. You are so exaggerating. With how you are now, I think that you can get any girl in school, Kaguya said as she looked at Ishigami's effort and appearance. At the same time, her words meant a certain thing to him. I just want her, though. Ishigami felt like he was amazing when he could say those words, especially when he had made a move with many women. What made you fall for her? Shirogane asked curiously. Her face. 2x. How shallow. 2x. Two thoughts, but was it wrong? Not really, since it was normal for others to fall for the appearance of others. I was joking. Ishigami felt awkward because of their gaze. Then, why? Shinomiya. Shirogane looked at Kaguya, who suddenly raised her voice with doubt. It's fine, Kaiku. Ishigami showed that he was okay, then said, if I have to say one reason, then it might be she is the first. First. 2x. You know my situation before, right? I have to admit that my impression of her wasn't good toward her in the beginning, but she was the first one who approached me and gave me kindness during such a moment, so I couldn't help but fall for her. Frankly, Ishigami felt embarrassed when he said all of that, especially about what he did, which, in reality, wasn't so sincere and pure. It seems so shallow, right? No, you are not. Unexpectedly, Shirogane shook his head and said, I think that is a good reason for you to fall for her. If there was someone who understood Ishigami's situation well, then it would be Shirogane. After all, he was the one who pulled Ishigami out of his room, telling him that he needed him. It was also because of that he understood how Ishigami could fall for Onodera in such a situation. Yet, this guy worked really fast. When Shirogane was still hesitating, Ishigami made his move, which made him helpless. As for that date plan, can I ask for your help again, senpai? To be honest, even if we have dated each other, I am still confident in myself, and I hope that you too can help me. Oh. When Ishigami saw Shirogane's expression, he was a bit helpless, but he decided to help him out. However. No, you are a man, right? If so, then you shouldn't rely on others and do your best on your own. 2x. Shirogane was shocked, but then he quickly changed his position with a slight disappointment. Shinomiya is correct. Your girlfriend has accepted you, so you should have confidence in yourself. Inwardly, his heart was bleeding since he couldn't go on a date with Kaguya again by using similar excuses. Okay. While there were many points that Ishigami was in doubt about, he decided to let it go since he wasn't sure what Kaguya was thinking, and more importantly, it was better not to think about Kaguya that much since he really should draw a cross between the two. Yes, he knew what Kaguya wished to be, but with how they were, he really didn't dare to make a relationship between the two. It wasn't the danger that he was afraid of, but the fact that he would hurt the one who cared for him the most that he was the most afraid of. A dog knew how to repay the one that had taken care of it, but was he even lower than a dog? If he was dull and didn't know some of the plots of this world, then it was okay, but unfortunately, he knew, so it was impossible for him to do something so wrong like that. In the worst case, there might be a chance that Shirogane might even commit suicide if Ishigami really made a move on Kaguya and then lived in self-blame. He is happy right now, so why should he make his life difficult? So, at this moment, he made up to ignore Kaguya's feelings and disappointed her. How was he going to do it? It was simple. I smell the scent of love. Suddenly, a familiar voice interrupted their conversation. When the three weren't prepared, suddenly, a figure with a silly detective costume borrowed from a drama club entered the scene with a smug expression on her face. Detective Chika is here. 3x. So, who is the lost lamb here? Is it you? As Chika said so, she moved closer to Ishigami and even put her smug face so close to Ishigami's face as if she was about to kiss him. If they were alone, it would be fine for Chika to be close like this, Ishigami thought, but couldn't you read the atmosphere? After all, at this moment, Kaguya stared at them with a sharp dagger-like gaze. Chapter 70, Ishigami never forgets to improve. Fujiwara, aren't you a little too close to Ishigami? Fortunately, before Kaguya made a move, Shirogane expressed his concern, which made Ishigami sigh in relief inwardly. Still, whether Kaguya or Shirogane thought that Chika was a little too close to Ishigami, especially when Chika leaned toward Ishigami's shoulder, resting two heavy weights on his body. While Ishigami was happy to support Chika in holding those heavy weights, Kaguya's gaze hurt him a lot. Frankly, if Ishigami was single, there wouldn't be a problem, but he had a girlfriend, and this was what Shirogane and Kaguya thought. Still, unlike Kaguya, who was clear about the ins and outs of Chika's relationship with Ishigami, which made her confused since she knew well that Ishigami decided to be loyal to his girlfriend, Shirogane was confused, wondering how their relationship could be so close. Did a romantic episode happen between the two when he didn't know it? Shirogane might be a monster virgin and lacked experience, but even so, he wasn't dull in this area. If he didn't have an inferiority complex and fixed himself with Kaguya, there was no doubt he would have a girlfriend already. What? I think it is normal. I am his senior, and he is my junior. Isn't it normal for us to be so close? Fujiwara appeared nonchalant and then looked at Ishigami, whose expression was as flat as the surface of the table in the student council room. Right, you. Yet. Ishigami knew that he was greedy for the reward from the system, but he had to say the aftermath of this incident was a little troublesome. If he wasn't careful, he knew that everything would collapse, and his fate would be worse than death. So, you three are talking about love, right? Is it you's girlfriend? Chika suddenly asked curiously, which made Ishigami's lips twitch unconsciously. Ah, you know it too, Fujiwara. Shirogane asked in surprise. Of course. I am the detective of love, Fujiwara Chika. Isn't it natural for you to consult me about his love problem? At the same time, Chika sighed in relief since she thought that Ishigami would talk about other things, but then again, why did he discuss his love life with others? Was there something that she didn't know? Still, she had to say, the unconvinced expression of Shirogane and Kaguya annoyed her. However, it didn't matter since she didn't care much about their thoughts. Instead, she glanced at Ishigami's side profile and observed his lips, which appeared soft and had a slight luster, making her wish to do something that she shouldn't do. By the way, you have done your talk, right? You help me tidy up the tabletop game club room. Do I have to? Come on. Chika didn't care about Ishigami's troubled expression, so she pulled him out of the student council room and brought him to the tabletop game club room. Meanwhile, Shirogane and Kaguya, who were left behind, fell into a strange silence. Should he talk about their previous date? Yes, it was enjoyable, and he wanted to go out more with Kaguya, but he wasn't sure how to invite her out, especially when he knew that she was relatively busy, and, to be honest, he didn't have the courage to invite her out. Moreover, it was impossible to rely on Ishigami, especially after Shirogane had said all of that. It was also weird, especially when Ishigami had a girlfriend. Yet, as he fell into a spiral of doubt, wondering why he didn't have the courage to express his feelings, Kaguya suddenly called him softly, Kaiku. Why yes, what's wrong, Shinomiya? Shirogane was startled, and his voice was a bit nervous and broken when his name was called. Are you busy this weekend? Weekend? Shirogane didn't answer this question immediately, but as if he was in deep thought, trying to remember his schedule even though he was completely free. I should be free on the weekend. Then, do you want to go out with me? Hey? Really? Shirogane was dumbfounded since he didn't expect Kaguya to be straightforward. Yeah, I want to see the aquarium. Is that okay with you? Okay. While Shirogane appeared nonchalant, he jumped around inwardly within his heart. Watching Shirogane, who accepted her invitation, Kaguya also smiled, thinking this was the best. Meanwhile, Ishigami, who was brought by Chika, was suddenly kissed by this naughty senior. Unlike him, who was conservative, Chika couldn't control her desire anymore, as if trying to possess him, kissing his lips obsessively, thinking how good it was. Kissing should be just touching each other's lips, yet why did it feel so good? When she thought about the new sensations on her body, it made her body giddy and hot, and she couldn't help but seek him more. Her cherry lips greedily sought after his, and her wet tongue moved lewdly, trying to pry his lips open. "Senpai, we're in the school." Naturally, he put his hands on her shoulders and pushed her when this girl tried to put her tongue inside him. Yes, kissing felt good, but there should be a place and an occasion, and at the same time, he wondered why all the women he knew were so aggressive. Was the pressure from their family that made them so stressed that they sought comfort with physical exchange? Were they so easy? If so, then he might be able to sleep with all the women in this school. Jokes aside, he had to remind her that the blackmail plot could happen in reality, and it was much worse than in the hentai. Still, if there was something that one should be lucky for, that most of the people in this country were all 3s. Short size, short time, and sometimes not being able to get up. Those evil janitors and fat otaku plots were mostly a fantasy, since it was impossible for fat people to have such a large stamina, especially when all of them hardly worked out. However, the plot of a muscular guy might happen in reality, since people with healthy bodies are naturally strong in this type of area. What? Don't you like it? If it's about safety, you don't have to worry. No one will come here. Unlike other popular clubs, the tabletop game club only had 3 members, so naturally, it was pretty quiet. Knowing how safe they were, Chika didn't hesitate and put her 2 hands inside Ishigami's shirt, rubbing his hard and muscular body, which made her face so hot. "Senpai, if you keep doing this, I might not be able to hold on, you know." His voice was heavy, filled with oppression, like a hungry carnivore that was about to hunt down its prey. Ha! 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 Chika couldn't hold on, and in the end, she passed out. "Senpai. Dash. Are you okay?" "Yeah, sorry for troubling you." Chika felt ashamed, since she didn't expect that she would pass out after such an exchange. At the same time, she felt her image as a perfect heroine was crushed, especially after she had a nosebleed and put 2 tissues on her nose, which made her like a pervert in the harem anime, who got a nosebleed due to a pervy situation. Yet, how could she not be? This man of hers was so handsome. More importantly, watching his flat pants, Chika was surprised and also felt curious, especially when she thought how huge it was before. So, it is impossible not to react like a harem protagonist. "Hey! Who do you think I am?" Ishigami was speechless. "Isn't it natural for me to react? You are attractive, after all." Chika blushed, feeling shy by his straightforward words, but then again, even though they had confirmed their relationship and she had agreed for him to be with others, she wished him to look at her more. Not others, only her. His eyes, she wanted those eyes to look at her body, and show that blazing desire that wished to ravage her. Damn it! It was her first time to know that she had this side of hers, but then again, her desire was impossible to stop, and it was almost overflowing. Do you want to join the tabletop game club?" Watching her innocent expression, Ishigami was speechless, but he thought for a while and shook his head. "No." "Ah, why? Don't you want to do it with me?" Chika looked at Ishigami with a pout, thinking that his love for his girlfriend was more than hers. "If I am not wrong, one of my classmates is a member of your club, right? Have you thought about what would happen to us then? If you are okay with it, then I won't say much, but then again, I can't spend much of my time here, especially when I still want to study and work." While joining the tabletop game might be a good choice for him since it gave him a space for the 2 to make out, Ishigami felt like it was a waste of time to join such a club. "But I want to stay with you more." At this moment, Chika acted like a baby, clinging to him as she sat on his lap, peeking at him with a cute expression. Ishigami fell silent and stared at Chika for a moment, thinking that she was adorable, but this and that were different. The woman was nice and all, but he had a goal that he wanted to achieve, so how could he fall for temptation? If only she had a good skill or 2, wait. While Chika's grades were average, she was good at languages and music. Should he learn those 2 skills from her? Chika tilted her head when Ishigami stared at her with a strange gaze. "Can you teach me a language, senpai?" At this moment, Ishigami had made a good excuse, but what he didn't know was that Chika also had her own plan. By the way, I wrote a new novel. Start by eating Jake no Me. That's the title. Thanks. Chapter 71, Nothing Can Stop Us. Music and Languages. Ishigami thought that this was a good reason for him to stay with Chika. Yes, Chika's grade might be average, but her skills in music and languages were impressive. While it might have been a while for her to play a musical instrument, she was so good at it that she earned many awards for it. At the same time, she mastered 5 languages due to her mother's previous job as a diplomat. Ah, you want to learn a language from me? Chika was surprised. Is that not okay? No. It's fine. Chika shook her head, then patted her chest, causing her 2 cantaloupes to sway to the left, right, up, and down, as if showing she was a capable older woman. But then, again, what's so sudden? I think that it would be more enjoyable if we had a similar interest except for something perverted. You are right. Chika felt like it wasn't good if she kept something perverted, and if this continued, she was afraid that she would lose her virginity as she couldn't hold her urge. The kiss, the touch, and every moment they were together felt so good, and sometimes, she imagined herself wondering how good it was to go further, even if she knew that it was forbidden. Even if they didn't go all the way, touching each other should be fine, right? However, she knew that this desire needed to be suppressed since she didn't want him to see her as an easy girl, even if she was more than willing to give her everything to him, and because of that, she wished him to do the same, giving his everything to her. Yes, she was being selfish since she knew well that he had a girlfriend, but for a girl of her status, why should she share him with others? Her man could only be for hers. Yet, at the same time, while it was a bit sickly, she felt that it was quite interesting when she thought about how her man had subdued and conquered many women, including Kaguya. When she thought that the high and mighty Kaguya cried sweetly under his body, she felt a shiver of excitement that made her face flush. However, everything had to be realistic, and Chika knew well that it was impossible for Kaguya to allow something like that to happen to her, right? Ishigami. What are you thinking about? Ishigami tapped Chika's forehead softly as he looked at her helplessly. Nothing, by the way, there is only one girl who is falling for you, right? What do you mean? I mean, are your girlfriend and I the only ones? Chika asked softly, but her eyes said otherwise. Should he tell the truth? Do you think I am a harem protagonist who can make any girls fall for me? You are not, but you are so handsome. What does that have to do with it? This is why you are a virgin. Ishigami. Like a beautiful girl who has many boys courting her. You should know how beautiful I am, right? From young till now, I have been confessed to millions of times by many boys. Millions? You are lying, right? If it was 1,000 or hundreds, Ishigami wouldn't be surprised, but millions? You might be surprised, but that number is normal for a perfect heroine like me. Ishigami. So, you should know how lucky you are to be able to get the body and the heart of a perfect heroine like me, right? When Chika said so, she put her forehead softly on his. Yeah, I am glad that I can have you, Chika. This time, even if it made Chika smug, Ishigami decided to tell his feelings. Don't say something like that so suddenly, okay? It isn't good for my heart. Still, instead of getting smug, Chika somehow blushed and became embarrassed. Did you get embarrassed? How cute. Shut up. The sun is just so intense. Don't misunderstand. Yes. Watching his victory-like smile, Chika felt annoyed and pouted, then took his lips again so suddenly, trying to give him revenge. Ishigami didn't push her away and just enjoyed their kiss as he ground his kissing skills, nibbling, entangling, and tasting each other's saliva. Many thought that when they wanted to do something intimate, they had to ask for permission, but that wasn't the case. What was important was to do something like this to make others wish to do something similar. A situation, a mood, a feeling, and everything. When all of them combined, everything came so naturally. At this moment, they only thought about their kiss, enjoying every moment together, immersed in their own world, only the two of them. Yet, even if he tried to hold on, it was impossible to stop the natural reaction on his body, and the 19 centimeters banana that he hid well stuck on Chika's soft buttocks, like a metal that was attracted by a magnet. When it happened, Chika stopped kissing him and looked at him with an admonishing gaze that seemed to blame him. Still, This expression on her was just so unbearable that he kissed her and hugged her soft body tightly within his arms. Even if their bodies were sweaty, and they almost lost their breath, the two never thought of parting away until the last moment as they held each other. "I love you, you." As their lips parted and their string of saliva was between them, Chika uttered those words smoothly. "Me too." His voice was deep and gruff, yet it made Chika wet. As they thought to continue, suddenly, a sound of footsteps was heard from the outside. "Chika-chan? And? Ah, Chika-paisan. Hey? Ishigami-kun." The two members of the tabletop game club looked at the disheveled Chika and Ishigami, who appeared to be trying to pick up a heavy box from the shelf. "Ah, Gigako-senpai, Kozu-chan, what's wrong?" "Ah, if you are curious, Yu is here to help me to move the box here." As Chika made an excuse, Terashima and Kozu Makihara looked at the two, thinking that they were suspicious. Still, because of this, whether Ishigami wanted it or not, he would be targeted by the tabletop gaming club, but fortunately, with Chika's help, even with the nervous situation that he encountered, he could go back to his own class. Nevertheless, even if Chika took care of Terashima and Kozu, he knew that this situation was far from over since he returned to his class. "You." Onodera came to him and hugged him directly. "Are you fine with moving around like this? It is a bit difficult. You were too fierce, after all. Don't you like it?" "Baka." As Onodera blushed shyly and happily in his arms, she suddenly moved her nose closer and sniffed a sweet scent from his body that made her body tense. Still, as Onodera was cornered by the unfamiliar scent on her boyfriend's uniform, many were staring at them, especially one girl who had a close relationship with him. "Aino, your eyes are too fierce." "Ah, Watching Aino's embarrassment, Kobachi shook her head but then stared at Ishigami and Onodera, who were so close to each other. It was impossible for her to give him up, and even if she had messed up everything, it was all worth it if she could get him. Chapter 72, Overflowing. "It took you quite a while on the student council, what happened?" Ishigami looked at Onodera, who appeared nonchalant and asked such a question, so he didn't bother to think much. At the same time, while it was a bit weird, he had this paranoia habit that often wondered the meaning of someone's question and why they asked such a question. Yes, he knew that this habit was quite wrong, especially when the one who asked him this question was Onodera, his girlfriend, and the one who gave her girlhood to him yesterday. Yet, could others blame him? If Kaguya could wholeheartedly fall in love with Shirogane, then would Ishigami be like this? As he thought so, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly, but even if he thought of many things within his head, his expression didn't change, and he still answered Onodera's question in a relaxed manner as if he hadn't done anything wrong. "I met Kaiku, Shinomiya-senpai, and Chika-senpai before, so we talked about the student council matter and also helped Chika-senpai to move some things on the tabletop gaming club." "I see." Onodera sighed in relief inwardly, knowing her boyfriend was innocent, and she almost blamed him due to her jealousy when she smelled a sweet womanly scent from his body. Probably, this scent came to him when Ishigami helped Chika at the tabletop gaming club, and more importantly, when he thought of Kaguya or Chika, she felt that it was quite hard for her boyfriend to attract them. Well, it wasn't impossible, but it was impossible to be done in a short time. Nevertheless, she decided to put away the scent by rubbing her body against his. "What are you going to do?" Ishigami looked at Onodera speechlessly, who kept rubbing her body against his, which made him helpless. He leaned forward slightly, trying to stop the urge to stand up. "Ah! Onodera is showing her affection again. Aino, do something. Can you guys do it somewhere else?" All of them were angry when Onodera showed her affection to Ishigami. Yes, they knew that they were a couple, but you should show your affection in a private place. "We're jealous." No, they meant that they tried to maintain the class situation so they could focus on their studies. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" Naturally, being called, Aino didn't hesitate to pull Ishigami and Onodera away. "How shameless! How can you hug each other inside the class?" Sorry. Onodera was too busy to think about erasing the scent on Ishigami's body like a dog that tried to mark its territory with its piss. Yet, Ishigami didn't care about all of that since when Aino tried to pull them away, he saw Aino's small hand was on his thigh, close to his nether region. More importantly, she even softly grasped it, which almost made a reaction. Was he being taken advantage of? Still, Like a woman who could say nothing and felt embarrassed when she was molested inside the train, Ishigami didn't say anything and just moved Aino's hand away as he tried to observe Aino's expression. What's wrong? Aino turned as if she didn't realize anything and was just confused as to why Ishigami held her hand. Ishigami felt her fingers lightly rub against his palm, but he didn't think too much and said, "No, it's fine." "You are weird." Aino snorted. Ishigami's lips twitched, and they wondered whether it was okay to knock Aino's head at this moment. Not only was his thigh touched and grasped, but somehow, this girl told him that he was weird. He sighed and didn't bother to talk to Aino. "Hey, wait, I know you two are just dating, but you should watch the place and occasion." If possible, Aino didn't want them to get lovey-dovey and stay as an innocent couple who hadn't even touched each other's hands until they graduated. Yet, while Ishigami, the virgin, was okay, Aino could tell that Onodera was like a slut, seducing this nerdy boy whose life was all about anime and games like that Guru hentai story which stayed at the house of the nerdy boy before led into an intimate situation. Well, Onodera wasn't a guru, but as Aino's mind had seen many unique and advanced knowledge of a relationship due to her nature as a public committee member, her mind couldn't help but wander to many pervy directions. In a place that she didn't know, Onodera ravaged Ishigami's body as he was unable to scream for help and just let her girlfriend satiate her sexual desire for him, and when she thought all of that, somehow... "Why are you crying?" Onodera was dumbfounded and stunned when she saw Aino was crying. "And nothing. What are you doing?" Somehow, Kobachi also came and helped Aino, who suddenly cried and then glanced at Ishigami silently. Ishigami was embarrassed, so he took out his handkerchief. "Use this to wipe your tears." "Hey." Aino was surprised, then looked at him with doubt. "Is that okay?" "It's fine." Thanks." Aino didn't hesitate and took Ishigami's handkerchief to wipe her tears. "I will return it after I wash it." "You don't have to." "No, I will wash it." "Okay." Watching her stubborn expression, Ishigami decided to give in. "Wash it clean. Don't leave your snot there." "I won't do something so dirty." When Aino showed her usually fierce expression, Ishigami sighed in relief, feeling that she had returned. Still, this exchange didn't bother him and Onodera as much as the two returned to their seats as they talked about random things. However, when the two left, Aino looked at Ishigami's handkerchief, its brand and its details before tightly holding his handkerchief and then, putting it in her pocket, taking out her smartphone to see where she could buy something similar. Kobachi fell silent and opened her cherry lips slightly before she closed them and patted Aino's shoulder softly. What? What's wrong, Koba-chan?" Aino asked nervously, realizing that she wasn't alone there. "How about you sit down first before you play with your smartphone?" I will do that." Watching Aino, who trotted to her seat, then stopped for a moment to watch Ishigami, then continued, Kobachi let out a helpless sigh, hoping that everything was okay. Still, instead of Aino's problem, she was more interested in the place where she should go on a date with Ishigami later, so similar to Aino, she also returned to her seat and took her smartphone. Still, Ishigami knew nothing about that. Instead, he talked about his plan for the day. "Study and gym, hey. What's wrong? Do you want me to pamper you or something today? Is that okay? I have pampered you enough earlier, right?" "Not enough." However, Onodera also didn't want to cause Ishigami trouble, annoy him, and did something that made him hate her due to how clingy she was. To be honest, she wanted to hug him tightly, having him kiss her so many times, then, she didn't dare to explain any more. Still, she also knew that the place and the occasion weren't right, and she didn't want trouble coming due to her overflowing desire. More importantly, she also knew that his desire to improve was so. "Then, let's go out today after school." "Hey? Really?" Onodera looked at Ishigami in surprise. "Yeah, today is an exception. Is there a place you want to visit?" After all, 2 days ago, Onodera had just lost her first time to him. Even if she should be okay now, Ishigami also knew that it was better to comfort her today so that he could focus on studying and improving the next day. "Can it be any places?" Onodera asked shyly. "Perverted, aren't you?" I don't mean that." Watching her flustered expression, Ishigami didn't really mind going all out, so he thought to agree, but... "Can we go to your house, you?" Onodera asked shyly. Chapter 73, I am back. Ah, he won't study with you today. Why? Tsubame looked at her two best friends and said calmly, he is going out with his girlfriend now. Shizuku and Yum. The two didn't say anything and tried to observe Tsubame's expression. Usually, Ishigami would be in the library, studying until the library was about to close, and naturally, Tsubame would be by his side, teaching him all the things that he didn't know, but today was an exception since he would go back with his girlfriend. Still, fortunately, he told her that he would continue to study tomorrow, telling her that today was an exception. At the same time, while Tsubame had an idea why Ishigami decided to postpone their study session, she had to say Onodera was so bold and courageous. However, even if Ishigami didn't intend to go on a study, Yum and Shizuku asked Tsubame to go with them to take a peek at him, which made Tsubame feel speechless, but she didn't say much and just stared at Yum, who had said something so outrageous before. So, that's him. What's with that HMM? No, I understand why Tsubame seduced him somehow. Can't you not say something so seductive? Only Tsubame fell silent, realizing that it was better not to tell everything to her best friends, even if she wanted to talk about what she had hidden, since if she didn't say anything, would her best friends even show an interest in him? Yet, when she looked at Ishigami's handsome face, somehow, even if she didn't say anything, she could tell that many girls would be attracted to him since even now, even if he held Onodera's hand, many girls were stealing a glance in his direction. Meanwhile, in the opposite direction, Moha brought Kei to the high school area, trying to search for Chika's boyfriend. Unfortunately, they had missed Ishigami, who had left, and in the end, they just wandered around until they found Chika. Hey? Moha? Kei-kan? What are you doing here? Chika was surprised when she saw the two. Nei-chan. Chika-ne. While Moha trotted toward Chika happily, Kei greeted Chika politely. So, what's wrong? Do you need anything in the high school area? Ah, we're just looking for your boyfriend, Nei-chan, Moha said with pure intention, without hiding anything. Chika was so speechless and unable to say anything. Did you stalk me before? Tee-hee. Moha stuck out her tongue cutely. Chika. Still, as Chika tried to educate Moha not to do something so naughty in the future, especially when she knew that it was hard to discuss her relationship with Ishigami, Kei was looking around, trying to search for Ishigami's presence, but unfortunately, she couldn't find him. On the other hand, Ishigami knew nothing about what had happened at the school, and if he knew, he would say that it was fortunate that he didn't stay at the school for so long. But is it really okay for me to go to your home? While Onodera wished to go to Ishigami's house, she couldn't help but feel nervous when she thought about meeting his parents. It's okay. Ishigami looked at Onodera and said, you saw my chats with my mother, right? Well. But really, you don't have to worry. Why are you so confident? Onodera asked with doubt. It's because, like you, they are also nervous. Hey? Really? Aren't they adults? Of course. I brought my girlfriend home to meet my parents. Isn't it obvious that they will be nervous? Imagine that you are a parent, how would you feel if your child brought their partner home? If you say it that way. Moreover, being an adult means that you realize that you are not perfect. You might have more experiences, and because of that, you have a lot of worry, but because they have a lot of experiences, they are good at masking their expressions, unlike you, who shows everything on your face. Feeling the gentle touch on her pointy nose, Onodera blushed as her eyes melted, staring at him with affection, hugging him tightly, then leaning into him. You know a lot. Ishigami only smiled and didn't say much, but then, this also made Onodera think about what he had encountered in middle school, which made her cling to him tighter. Rei. I am here. Ishigami was speechless, but he then smiled, thinking that his girlfriend was cute. You are right. I am not alone now. Showing a sweet smile, Onodera asked, you are going to the gym now, right? If you don't want to, we can go to my house right away. No, it's fine. I have never seen you working out, so I want to see. Unlike when Ishigami was studying, Onodera knew that there wouldn't be any gentle senior who would teach him gently in the gym, right? It's boring, though. I don't mind. I want to see it at least once. Okay. Ishigami didn't bother to persuade Onodera anymore since when he was working out, he didn't bother to talk with others, and it was rather an interaction between him and his body, so he would probably ignore her and let her do her own things. Still, that was probably fine on its own since the attention wasn't something that a girl sought all the time. When men focused on their work or hobby, it was an attractive scene on its own for the opposite gender and for the same gender, who had, let's not discuss this matter. Ishigami, welcome. Hello, Arihara-san. You came so early this time. I plan to go home early. Is that so? The cute female staff of the gym then realized that Ishigami wasn't alone and noticed Onodera, who was by his side. This is my girlfriend. Ishigami introduced Onodera and said, she wants to observe the gym. Is that okay? Sure. Arihara showed a bitter smile at Ishigami, then looked at Onodera with a gentle, professional smile. If you want to, there is a free trial that you can try. Do you want to try it? Nevertheless, even if she was sad by knowing the truth, she didn't forget to offer registration for the gym to Onodera since if she could get Onodera into a membership, she could get a commission. At the same time, frankly, even if Ishigami had a relationship, it didn't matter since it was normal for others to make a move on a man who had a relationship, especially when an attractive man was such a rare resource. Ah! Onodera was surprised, but she shook her head and said, no, I am a little uncomfortable today, so I will just watch. That's fine. If you need anything, please call me. Onodera nodded and didn't seem flustered. Instead, she was calm since her personality was extroverted, and her parents had brought her to their family's company, so she was all fine and didn't feel awkward when she talked with strangers. The only problem was that her boyfriend was too popular. Whenever Ishigami walked, there were many people who greeted him, especially those married women who had nothing to do in the afternoon and evening, spending their time in the gym before they went home to prepare dinner for their husbands and children. So, during those times when their husbands and children weren't around, what were they doing? Nevertheless, when Ishigami started to work out, Onodera couldn't help but say, you are so popular. Is that so? I think it is okay. Moreover, they are married women, okay? Do you think I will do something weird to them? No. However, Onodera was afraid that those married women would make a move on her boyfriend, so. Should I join a gym? No, you shouldn't. Why? Your breasts might become smaller. Under that silence, Ishigami thought that Onodera would get angry, but... Hey? Really? Will they get smaller? Ishigami thought that it would be hard for him to have a quiet workout session. Nevertheless, after he explained the ins and outs, Onodera was all quiet and just observed him working out. While some people tried to approach her boyfriend, he was relatively calm and just continued to work out quietly as she talked to him, but then became quiet when he put all of his focus on his workout. Onodera's eyes never wandered, she kept staring at him as she blew hot breath from her cherry lips and licked her lips with her tongue with a scorching gaze. She almost couldn't hold her urge when his strong, virile body showed its power. Ishigami. Then, they spent their time like this after he washed his body and changed into spare clothes that he had brought before, which only consisted of a simple white shirt, loose-fit grey sweatpants, and an Adidas Samba. Onodera smiled when she saw him changing his clothes and stuck to him all the time, thinking that he was really good at dressing up, but then again, when he was so handsome and fit, all his clothes could be perfectly worn by him. Should I buy something before we visit your house? Onodera felt like it would be too rude if she didn't bring something when she visited his place. Sure. What should I buy? How about cake? My mother likes it. Okay, let's get that. As they bought several cakes near his house, the two went to his house, and naturally, as Onodera was so nervous, she held his hands and talked endlessly about what to do. It's fine. I am here. Feeling his hand on hers, tapping her softly, Onodera felt secure and wished for this time to continue forever with him until their old age. But if possible, she wanted to pass away first since she definitely would be miserable if he passed away first. Still, all of her thoughts quickly disappeared since. I am back. Chapter 74, Perfect Daughter-in-Law. Welcome, welcome. Unexpectedly, before Ishigami said anything, his mother welcomed them, seemingly excited about Onodera's coming. This is Arai-chan, right? Ishigami Mama looked at Onodera happily and nodded in satisfaction. Beautiful, smart, and came from a good family. If this wasn't the most suitable daughter-in-law, then what was suitable? Or rather, when she heard from her son that his girlfriend wanted to come, naturally, she prepared herself and even told her husband to get ready, giving the best of the best since it was her first time for her son to bring his girlfriend home. Naturally, she was nervous, and while her first son was good and obedient, he was more into his job, which made her worry about whether he would marry late. As for being unable to have a wife, there was no such thing, especially when his first son was so good. However, this was her second son, the troublemaker, so when she saw Onodera for the first time with her own eyes, she had made up her mind to make her into her daughter-in-law. Yes, she is. However, Ishigami felt a little overwhelmed by his mother's enthusiasm, but Onodera was fine since she didn't have a communication problem. Instead, she was one of the girls who had a lot of friends and was relatively popular. Yes, Auntie, my name is Onodera Rei. I am Yu's girlfriend. Still, Onodera would be lying if she wasn't nervous, but even so, she introduced herself to her future mother-in-law politely. I see. I see. Can I call you Rei-chan? You can also call me Mom if you want. I was joking. How about we enter now? I have heard that you like white stew, right? I just cooked it. Let's have dinner together. Thank you, Mom. Onodera blushed, feeling shy when she called Ishigami Mama a mom. Phew, it's fine. It's fine. Ishigami Mama had always wished to have a good daughter, so she was more than happy when Onodera was so obedient. As the two entered the house, Ishigami was ignored, which made him speechless, but he shook his head before he followed and saw his father in the living room. Unlike his mother's overflowing enthusiasm, his father was called calm, reading a newspaper, and appeared nonchalant, but Ishigami could see that his father was the newspaper's upside-down state. Dad, can you read the newspaper that way? Ishigami Papa's lips twitched, and he quickly realized that his newspaper was upside down before he glared at Ishigami, who couldn't give him a cue in a subtle way so he wouldn't feel embarrassed, but fortunately, his wife had taken all the attention of Onodera so his dignity as a father wasn't damaged. However, Ishigami's attention was quickly turned to another person inside the living room. A familiar face, with shorter hair, but older and wearing a professional suit. Naturally, Ishigami felt that he was more handsome, especially when his body was fitter, and he got a double charm, but there was no doubt he was surprised to see this person here. Anaki, why are you here? What were you surprised about? Of course, I was going home when I heard that you wanted to bring your girlfriend home. In other words, Ishigami's older brother was curious, that's it. Nevertheless, unlike Ishigami, who was still a high school student and lived with his parents, his older brother was an adult and worked in their father's company, so probably, that was why he lived alone. Frankly, living alone was more convenient, especially when Ishigami had a lot of secrets that he didn't want to expose. Meanwhile, while Ishigami thought of many things, he couldn't help but look at his older brother and father, who was looking at his girlfriend, who was together with Ishigami Mama curiously. To be honest, I am surprised that you can get such a cute girlfriend, but then again, when I see your change, I am not surprised. Unlike the gloomy Ishigami in the past, Ishigami Ueda, Ishigami's older brother is unnamed in the original story, so I gave him a name for the sake of convenience, looked at his little brother with a complicated mood since he had to admit that this little brother of his that often caused trouble really had changed. Handsome, calm, and mature. Instead of being embarrassed when Ishigami Mama suddenly stormed forward to Onodera, Ishigami was so chill that he didn't care much about the conversation between the two, which probably related to his embarrassing past. Parents are like that, after all, they love to share the happy times they share with their children, but naturally, for children, it is an embarrassing moment since their happy times mean their dark past. What happened? Ueda couldn't help but ask his younger brother about Ishigami's change. From working out in the gym, studying hard even when he was home, waking up every morning for jogging, and even bringing him a cute girlfriend home. This, wasn't Ishigami lived to his fullest? When Ueda thought about his past, he felt a bit speechless since he spent all of his time studying, but then again, in the company, there were many cute employees who often seduced him, and frankly, if he wished to, he could become an evil boss, who made a move on his beautiful married subordinates, but he still wished for pure love, and also someone with a matching background, considering his proud nature as the son of a company owner. You should follow Yu's example and get married fast. Ishigami Papa was more straightforward and quickly told his first son to get a woman and then get married quickly, turning his second son into a good example. Ueda's lips twitched, but he didn't say much since he was almost in his 30s, so it was normal for his parents to urge him to marry, but then again, he wasn't in a hurry, especially when marriage was a complicated thing. Not because he couldn't find his loved one or because of his proud nature, but because the essence of marriage was interest, not love. Many people said that marriage is a graveyard of love, while many denied it since many were happy with their marriage. Many also supported it since many were unhappy and divorced from their partner. If love really could conquer everything, it would be all good, but when one enters society and starts to work, they know well that only a few could live with just love alone. What are you three talking about? Let's eat dinner first. Okay. With the urging of Ishigami Mama, all of them started their early dinner, and Onodera sat by the side of Ishigami Mama as their relationship became closer after their small talk in the kitchen. Whether it was Ishigami, Papa and Yuata also nodded, thinking that Ishigami had chosen a good partner, especially since they had learned about Onodera's background. If Ishigami's family was a nobody's family and just a middle-class family, it probably didn't matter what kind of woman Ishigami wanted to marry, since as long as the woman loved him, it was all good. But even if their family only owned a middle-sized toy company, they were still considered a wealthy family, so there was no doubt, they wanted the Ishigami to have a good partner, who matched their identity, since when one reached such a status, while it might appear shallow and hypocrite, they thought themselves better than some and thought others had a lower status, especially in this country, which hierarchical position among people was extremely strict. Onodera was the perfect choice since her family's status was about the same as theirs and even slightly higher than theirs, considering she was the first daughter of the jewelry company's CEO. Even if their conversation didn't lead to a complete decision about which Ishigami would marry Onodera in the future, there was no doubt that their relationship was happily accepted by his parents. However, watching the happy conversation between Onodera and his family, Ishigami fell in silence, wondering what he really should do in the future, especially with all the messy relationships that he had made. Is it possible for the law to allow polygamy? As he thought so, he knew that it was hard, especially with the conservative nature of this country, but then again, the dinner ended with a good ending, and everyone was happy, especially Onodera, who had gained the acceptance and affection of her boyfriend's family. However, she felt this war was far from enough, and she didn't plan to go home first since there was something that she wanted to do in this place. Can I look at your room? Creator's thoughts. Akikan 40. If you wish to see advanced chapters, you can check the link below. https://www.patreon.com/akikan40. Comment. 20 comment. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 75, not only an animal, but a man also has a tail. Excuse me. After Ishigami gave his permission, Onodera walked to his room, which was located on the second floor of his house. You don't have to be that nervous, right? Ishigami felt strange because of Onodera's shyness, especially since they had done many things together before. Dummy. Onodera blushed and lightly hit his arm like a flirt, showing her annoyance, but she also couldn't be blamed since she was so excited to visit her boyfriend's room. At that moment, she was like that teenage virgin boy who had never been in a female room before, marveling at the scene before her. Still, while she was attracted by his room, there was something that she was more attracted to. Yet, as a female, it was impossible for her to be straightforward as she didn't want to be seen as a slut, so she turned her head, looked at him with a melting gaze, hoping him to realize everything. Ishigami fell silent for a moment and moved fast by locking the door of his room. While Onodera was preparing, her heart skipped a beat, and she asked him nervously, even though she had expected this. Why did you lock the door? So we can have a relaxed chat since it might be nerve-wracking for you if my family suddenly enters the room, right? Without any guilt, Ishigami expressed his concern, telling his girlfriend that he locked the door so Onodera could be comfortable inside his room. After a moment of snorting, Onodera didn't refute him since she knew well that in terms of argument, she would lose to him, and if he pushed her, she knew well that her body would obediently accept him, so instead of worrying about what would happen next, she thought to observe his room first curiously since it was her first time into a boy's room. Naturally, the one that attracted her the most was his collection of manga, games, and even figures. Oh, you also collect figures? My family owns a toy company, after all. By the way, where did you keep the beautiful girl figures here? Where did you hide it? It's fine. I am quite open-minded about this kind of matter. I don't have such a thing, okay? My mother will kill me if I collect such a thing. Onodera laughed when she heard her boyfriend's answer, but then again, she also felt that it was normal for him not to collect a beautiful girl figure, at least openly, since she knew well that he was living with his parents and his mother might come to his room from time to time to clean it, so in case there was a sexy, beautiful girl figurine inside his room, what would happen to Ishigami? However, she had to say that even if there were many figurines and toys within his room, it didn't make his room childish. Instead, they made his room interesting since the way Ishigami arranged them made her like watching a mural or a story that was formed by the arrangement of all of those toys and figures. If there was a reason for this, it was because of the reward he gained from Onodera, design talent, which made him arrange his room in a way that made people comfortable, cozy, yet fun. Yet, instead of his room, he was more interested in the woman before him. The manly scent that permeated this room was slowly mixed with the feminine, sweet scent that Onodera exuded. Ishigami felt his blood boiling, especially when he saw her leaning forward, causing her fitted uniform to be stretched and tightened around her delicate body. Onodera might not have the best body, and she might even be on the slender side, yet the curves on her chest were impossible to hide, and her round buttocks became so distinct when the skirt part of her uniform was pulled by her leaning forward action. More importantly, her white, slender thighs were visible as her skirt was slightly pulled, which made it almost possible for him to see what was under that skirt. As her skirt swayed, it moved in a way like the cape of a matador that tried to provoke the aggressive bull. Why am I like this? While Ishigami felt guilty before when he saw how Onodera had been trying hard to have a good relationship with his family, his mind quickly wandered in that direction. Yet, no matter what, she was his girlfriend, so it should be fine, right? Still, he quickly shook his head since he knew that Onodera hadn't fully recovered, so he should be patient so he wouldn't hurt her, but... You, where did you hide your porn? Watching her slightly dirty expression, Ishigami took a deep breath and stepped forward closely as if he was trying to tell her the inspiration for how he arranged his room. Instead of that kind of book, you should look at this kaiju figurine. See? Its tail is fat and long. Onodera's expression became subtle when she saw him press his front tail on her soft buttocks with a pure and innocent expression as if he had done nothing wrong. Once again, she snorted, but she didn't move away and just slightly swayed her buttocks as if she felt uncomfortable with her position. Right and left, she kept moving it in a way, pretending not to notice the tail that had become longer, fatter, and firmer than the kaiju figurine's tail. That kaiju's tail isn't that long compared to the one behind me. That's not a tail, okay. Oh, what is it then? Onodera asked with a lewd smile. That's a stick. Oh, a stick. Watching her expression, Ishigami let out a helpless sigh and asked, I know that it might be late, but have you recovered? Ha ha ha, not yet, but it's fine. Onodera knew that she hadn't recovered, but it didn't matter since she had another way. You, if you don't mind, can you teach me how to play a game? Game, hey? While I have seen the instruction video, it is my first time, too, but I will do my best to teach you. Ishigami's expression didn't appear like a lie, as if it was really his first time. Okay, we can play together. Let's sit on the bed so it will be more comfortable. Okay. Onodera was obedient and listened carefully to her boyfriend's explanation while she held her 19 cm stick. While this stick was big, and she needed to use her 2 hands to hold it, she tried her best to play this game. How is it? It feels good. Really? Yeah, you might have talent in this area. I am not sure whether I should be happy when you tell me that. Regardless, Onodera studied with all of her might and listened to the teaching of her boyfriend, but she felt it was a bit boring to just play a game, so she started to sing. Fortunately, this stick could be used as a microphone, too, so she opened her lips and started to make a unique sound that could only be produced with a unique 19 cm microphone. Kissing, licking, and holding it tightly with her 2 hands. Onodera sang happily, enjoying that she started to sweat as her long hair stuck onto her forehead and beautiful face. Naturally, watching how hard Onodera worked, Ishigami was also moved by her dedication, so he decided to give her some treats since he knew well that she must have consumed a lot of calories. When Ishigami told her that he wanted to give her a treat, Onodera accepted it and took all of the treat, which was a liquid protein. If it were others, they would be surprised by her since she dared to drink this treat, even though it was their second time, but even though it was her second time, she loved to drink it well, especially due to the delicious ability Ishigami gained previously. Regardless, as the two played together, their proficiency became better and better as they continued to play a game, especially when the stick was still standing firm. While Onodera was amazed by this stick, she decided to solve her doubt. By the way, do you have a ruler? Let me check how long this stick is. Ishigami. Still, while they continued to play a game, Onodera couldn't stay for so long, and when it reached 7 at night, she decided to go home by calling a taxi. Then, see you tomorrow. See you. After kissing, Onodera decided to leave and hoped to recover as soon as possible so that the two could play the game with the next difficulty. Still, when she thought about his touch on her 2 buttons and another part of her body shivered, and her eyes became dreamy as she looked at her boyfriend lovingly as she thought that she would never give him to anyone. Nevertheless, Ishigami stayed with her, standing in front of his house until he couldn't see her taxi anymore before he dropped his hand, looking at the night sky as he took a deep breath, but he didn't let out a long sigh. Instead, he let the air sink deep into his lungs as he suddenly became greedy, thinking of the other women that he was with, and at the same time, he felt that it was ironic that the young man, who hated the other due of their debauchery act, became debauchery himself. Still, he knew that instead of the future problem, he should think about his current problem since when he returned, his mother kept staring at him with a complicated expression on her face. Chapter 76, Cuteness Conquers Everything. Mom. While Ishigami felt awkward between the two, he decided to greet his mother innocently. Unlike his father and older brother, who remained on the first floor all the time, Ishigami Mama went to the second floor, trying to check on him by taking snacks and teas for Ishigami and Onodera. This was what she planned to do, but when she was about to knock on Ishigami's room, she stopped when she heard a sweet cry from her youngest son's room. While the cry was low, when she stood so close, naturally, she heard it. Onodera had become crazy due to her son. The truth was that her son, who appeared to be innocent, gentle, and kind, was such a sadist. Watching how he appeared so free from all the sins in the world, there was an urge to beat this son of hers. She wasn't sure why, though, but then Onodera was happy with him, especially when she thought about how Onodera had asked for a ruler previously. 19.5 centimeters. Yes, it seemed his length and grid had improved. Was it due to his young age, which made him able to improve further, or because of the improvement of his physical ability, which made that part grow along with his body? However, when she thought about how she happened to see him in the bathroom before, she also understood how well her son was, and she also understood why Onodera loved him so much. Ishigami's face was so handsome, and his family situation wasn't bad. While he might not be the richest, there was no doubt that if someone married him, their future would be comfortable. More importantly, his 19.5 centimeters was also a plus point, which added happiness to a girl's future marriage. At the same time, Ishigami Mama wondered how her family could give birth to such a son since neither his father nor older brother was so handsome. Did Ishigami mutate? Or did love change someone so much? It was said that emotion could affect health, growth, and many others, so when one falls in love, it is impossible for him to become more handsome and well endowed, right? Yet. No matter what, you are my son, so if you are happy, I am happy. Onodera's gentleness and quality might have moved Ishigami Mama, but no matter what, Ishigami has been her priority since he was her son. I love you, Mom. Ishigami thought that his mother's heart would be taken by Onodera, and his status on his mother's heart would be shaken, probably telling him to take care of Onodera. Yet, unexpectedly, his mother thought of his happiness first instead of Onodera, so naturally, he felt happy. Hugging her tightly, he kissed her cheek so many times. How old are you? Ishigami Mama just let her son kiss her cheek. Are you going to be a mama boy all the time? While she sounded so helpless, her smile couldn't be hidden when her son was so close to him like this, giving her sweet love of son. It's fine. I am a mama boy. Ishigami couldn't care much whether he was called a mama boy since those who said those words to him probably lacked a mother's love, and they were envious of him. Instead of thinking about others' opinions of his intimate act with his mother, it was far better to make his mother happy, right? The life of a housewife was quite bland, after all, especially when their children had grown up, but fortunately, Ishigami Papa was quite lively at night, and he even spent money to make a flower shop for Ishigami Mama so she could do something when she was bored. Boredom was everyone's enemy, after all, and if someone was tempted by a bastard, their happiness might be broken, like those families in the hentai manga. Yes, Ishigami might be a mama boy, but this was a good thing since, this way, his mother would think of him all the time. In other words, being a mama boy meant that he was helping the harmony of his family. Regardless, the act of betrayal in marriage probably had been the topic for everyone from the beginning when something known as a marriage existed, but let me say that in case someone was cheating, the one who was wrong was the one who cheated instead of the one that was cheated on. The one who was being cheated on was the one who was hurt, yet the one who cheated had the gall to blame everything on the one who was being cheated. It was the same case with him, who had cheated on his girlfriend. It wasn't Onodera who was at fault, but it was him who couldn't stay loyal and was a cheating bastard. But take care of her, okay? Don't play around. Still, Ishigami Mama needed to remind Ishigami since she didn't want him to hurt such a good girl. Who do you think I am? Do you think that those girls are easy to deceive? Do you think your son is such a capable man? Ishigami was surprised, wondering how Ishigami Mama could think of him as a Casanova who seduced many women with ease. Shouldn't she think of him as a nerdy, virgin, pure boy? I do. Ishigami Mama nodded, then pulled his cheek softly. So, be careful. What this be careful meant was that Ishigami decided not to think too much and just stayed with his mother like a spoiled boy before he went to the living room together and saw his father and older brother, who talked about something somewhat. Are you bringing the matter of the company home? Ishigami Mama asked helplessly. We're going to have a new project after this. Dad is right, Mom. Ishigami Mama rolled her eyes, but she didn't say much since she also understood the company's problem was important, especially since they needed money to maintain their lives. Has your girlfriend gone home? Ishigami Papa asked as he looked at Ishigami, who latched onto Ishigami Mama. She just went home earlier. She is good. If you can marry her, then I won't have any worries in life. Ishigami Papa sighed, thinking that his youngest son really had grown up. Ishigami didn't say anything and only smiled. Instead, he looked at the documents and various pictures that were spread on the table. What are you doing? Yuata glanced at his little brother and said, We're looking for a new design for the figurine. You can check them if you want to. If it were others, they wouldn't be allowed to see, so that was why Yuata and Ishigami Papa only took out those documents and designs after Onodera went home, but Ishigami was a family, so it didn't matter. Oh. Ishigami was curious and moved closer to see the various designs drawn by the employees of their family's toy company. A toy needs to be designed, especially figurines, which need to have different characters, clothes, expressions, and many others. Even dolls, cards, puzzles, and many others also have to be designed so that they are distinguished from others. To be honest, even Ishigami had to say that design was probably one of the most important things within a toy company, except for an outsourcing company, which was lived by order of another company. If a company wanted to live and continue, they had to innovate, so a design was necessary. If he gave an example, it was like how Apple started to innovate with the iPod and iPhone by changing how a mobile phone was designed, which was thick and unpleasant to the eyes originally. Ishigami Papa and Yuata wanted to innovate, even if the scale wasn't as huge as the iPod or the iPhone, and from the picture of the design, it was easy to tell that Ishigami Papa and Yuata were talking about a design for new figurines. Those designs are cute. Ishigami looked at the designs one by one and thought that all of them had a similarity, which was cuteness. You are right. Yeah, we're thinking of designing a figurine with cuteness as a main selling point. Cuteness, hey. Ishigami looked at the designs and saw that all of them were at a standard size but with just a cute expression, clothes, or other things, which lacked the imagination and the cuteness that his father and older brother sought. What kind of cuteness are you two looking for? Well, just cute. Yeah, as long as it is cute, it doesn't matter. The two didn't have a clear image, but they knew that they wanted cuteness within the figurines. Ishigami thought for a moment and realized that while there were many parts of this world that were similar to his previous worlds, some of them were different, including toys. By the way, can you give me a paper and pencil? What? Do you want to make a design, too? Can I try? Sure. Ishigami Papa nodded and said, Honey, isn't there a paper and a pencil there? Wait a moment. When Ishigami Mama brought the paper and pencil, Ishigami started to draw. While his drawing skills weren't as good as those of a professional, they were quite decent, especially after he had read about beginner drawing skills, which he had bought previously during his date with Onodera. With his reading skills, as long as he read something, he was able to learn the skills that came from the book he read, including drawing. In the beginning, Ishigami Papa and Yuata didn't have much expectation, only curiosity, but as Ishigami started to draw, their eyes started to widen. This is. It was about 10 centimeters in size, with a large head and small body proportion, which made it appear so cute. So cute! Even Ishigami Mama was surprised by the design Ishigami had drawn. Yes, Ishigami's drawing skills might not be as good as those professionals, but what was important for a design was the design itself. Even if the drawing was a bit rough, it could be fixed later. More importantly, with Ishigami's design talent, this was nothing for him. This is it. Yeah, this is it. When Ishigami finished his drawing design, Yuata and Ishigami Papa quickly took away the paper and looked at it with a marvel. So, is this okay? Ishigami asked. Yeah. This is perfect. Yuata nodded excitedly. Oh. My son is a genius at design. Ishigami Papa was also excited. It's good and all, but don't forget about my royalty, okay? Hearing those words, their faces quickly changed. You are also an heir of the company anyway. Isn't it good for you to support the company? That's right. You are an heir like your brother, so there is no need for you to have a royalty since you will have half of the company shares in the future. Hearing those words, Ishigami's lips twitched, thinking that they were all evil capitalists. Yes, it was true that if his father passed away, he would inherit half of the company shares, but he was the one who made that design, okay? Shouldn't he get a royalty from it? Yet, Ishigami didn't have power, and he hadn't made his name. More importantly, in this country, especially for employees, don't expect them to gain royalty from the designs they have drawn. Still, how cold. However, Ishigami didn't say anything and just stared at his father and older brother in silence. Ishigami Papa felt awkward and then took out 2 things from his pocket. Here is the trading account that you have asked for. I have put $1 million inside. Still, he felt that this wasn't enough, so he moved closer and whispered, as for the apartment, you can ask me later. You can even get the 3LDK one if you want to. Can I get a penthouse similar to Tsubame's home? However, Ishigami knew that Tsubame's home would take a lot of money, and with his current family's net worth, while it was okay, it would be troublesome for his father to give him such a penthouse, but for 3LDK, it was easy. Nevertheless, instead of an apartment, he was more interested in this trading account, which had 1 million yen on it, was the one that attracted him the most. While this 1 million yen might not appear much, especially for those people who stood above or were trying to get rich in this sector, he believed that he could turn it into thousands and more from its initial. Still, this amount of money was nothing compared to the growth of his family company after it gained its design. However, it didn't matter since half of the company shares would be his anyway, so the bigger the company was, the better. By the way, what name will you give to this type of figurine? Yuata and Ishigami Papa looked at Ishigami at the same time, wondering what kind of a name that Ishigami would bring. Anyway, he was the creator, and with his taste in design, his naming taste shouldn't be bad, right? It's Nendroid. There was no shame on Ishigami's face, and as long as he could make money, what was wrong with plagiarism? Anyway, this world and his previous world were a bit different, and conquering half of the toy market in this world was quite an interesting goal, right? So, with all of that, there was no need for him to hesitate anymore. Chapter 77, Sleep Tight and Rest Well. Nico. After talking about the design with his father and older brother, Ishigami didn't just end his new figurine type of design with just a mere drawing but talked about the detailed ways of the figurines, patents, marketing, and many others. All of them wanted to sell this Nendroid as soon as possible so their company could grow bigger as soon as possible. Naturally, Ishigami also added Figmas so that way, his family's company could become like the company in his previous life. Still, he had to say even if the market for figurines was okay, it wasn't that high. Figurines aside, Ishigami was more interested in educational toys, outdoor toys, sports toys, and plush since those types of toys would make the most money, as well as games. Still, everything had to be taken step by step, and everything started from conquering the figurine market. Instead of the problem of money, he thought of using his eyes of wealth to the best use, not by using it to pick up money on the road but with this trading account. Still, while he wanted to get more money soon, he knew that there was a limited time for stock trading, so he needed to wait for the market to open. Frankly, FX trade might be better since its market opened for 24 hours, but his father definitely wouldn't allow him to go on such a market, considering how volatile it was. Even so, a stock market was enough for him, especially when the leverage option wasn't closed. Well, this leverage wasn't much, only 2 times, though, but it was okay for him. Still, as he had to wait for tomorrow, he talked with Kobachi, who called him, about their date plan for next weekend. Can we? Nico. Even though Ishigami had said that they could have stayed for a night during the date with Kobachi, he didn't expect that this girl would take his words seriously and decided to take their date to Nikko, which was a different city. In other words, they would stay at the hotel in that city, which made him feel conflicted, wondering how he could sleep with so many women in a short amount of time. Yes, he didn't doubt that he would sleep with Kobachi when they stayed together at that time unless she had her menstruation that day, since he knew well how thirsty and lewd this girl was. After all, what kind of a girl would suddenly push and kiss her crush so suddenly in the library, right? If he stayed with her in the same room for a night, what would this girl do? Yes, it wasn't him who would make a move, but he could imagine that it was her who made the move. You promised me before, right? Kobachi showed disappointment and sadness in the video when she saw Ishigami's hesitation. Are you going to break your promise, you? Ishigami's lips twitched, and then he sighed inwardly, but in the end, he agreed since he had promised before. Okay, we can go to Nikko. Hearing that answer, Kobachi's smile bloomed happily. Just prepare your luggage. You don't have to do anything. I have booked the hotel and train tickets. How much? I will pay for my shares. It's fine. I don't lack money, and it isn't that expensive either. Yes, this was the truth. Kobachi didn't lack money, especially when she was a child actress during her childhood. More importantly, she got pocket money from her mother, her estranged father, and even her mother's boyfriend. Even if she spent her money lavishly occasionally, it didn't matter to her. Well, compared to Kaguya, there was a long distance between them, though. Next time, when we go out, I will treat you. Okay. Those words were the ones that she wanted to hear since she didn't want this trip to be the only trip they went on. To be honest, even now, she wasn't sure what his feelings were toward her, and sometimes, she was afraid that he would leave her. She knew well that he was kind and gentle, so he wouldn't reject her, but at the same time, if this relationship continued, they would hurt Onodera sooner or later. While she was more than happy to see Onodera feel sad and even exposed to this relationship with Onodera, so that way, he could only be for hers, she wasn't such a devil, especially when she knew that Onodera and Ishigami had lost their first time together. If this continued, she knew that she would lose her position within her heart, so even if it was a little forceful, she decided to take him on the trip. But why Nikko? Is there something special that you want to see there? Still, Ishigami never thought too much about Kobachi's purpose and intention. Instead, he was just curious why she chose Nikko as their destination since it wasn't that popular spot among the youngsters. I am thinking of you. Me? Yet, you don't want to be seen by your girlfriend or her friends, right? More importantly, our relationship isn't something that can be shown to anyone, so among destinations, I chose Nikko since it isn't a popular spot among young people. I am not sure what to say. Just be mine for the entire weekend this week. Such a simple wish, yet Ishigami knew how hard it was for him to make an excuse to go out with Kobachi on the secret rendezvous on Nikko. Unlike Kobachi, who could make an excuse to stay at Aino's place, what about him? Could he say that he would visit his grandparents outside of Tokyo? Impossible. Why? Because Onodera had gotten to know his parents, Ishigami knew that his mother had exchanged contact info with Onodera. If he had made an excuse that he would visit his grandparents, he could have imagined that Onodera would ask his mother. Then, should he tell his mother the truth that he cheated on his girlfriend? While he knew that his mother might be able to keep everything hidden, he knew well that it might make his mother feel guilty, especially when his mother had to lie to Onodera in case he told his mother everything. If I have some business outside. If he had other work, such as being a writer, a singer, or even having a business, he could say that he was busy, but as he had nothing, he couldn't make an excuse. So, what about Kaiku? It was even more impossible since Ishigami knew that Shirogane was horrible at lying, acting, and other despicable things. More importantly, how could he make such a request? Yet, like the idiom of all roads lead to Rome, there must be a way, so he had never given up. Are you thinking about something? Kobachi asked with a gentle smile, but inwardly, no one knew what she was thinking, especially when she saw Ishigami, who appeared to be in a daze. No, I am just excited about this trip. Liar. By the way, are we staying in a different room? Ishigami tried to change the topic of the conversation. However, hearing this question, Kobachi smiled mischievously and asked, "Try to guess. If I win, what will I get?" Phew, what do you want? Is something a bit perverted? Okay." Kobachi laughed even harder and felt happy since she could see that Ishigami liked her even more. "Love me more. Love me more. Love me more." Those thoughts kept repeating within her mind as she wished him to be crazy about her. "What's wrong, you?" "No, I feel a bit chilly." "Ah, then you should take a rest." "Don't get sick," Kobachi quickly said, feeling worried about his health. "Okay." Ishigami also didn't intend to hang the call, afraid that his eyes would keep moving in a strange direction, even if he knew she was the one who tempted him. But then again, when he saw her gentle expression, was the cold feeling he felt before just his imagination? Only when the call closed did Kobachi remember that she forgot to ask him to meet her in the morning like before, but when she thought Ishigami felt a bit uncomfortable, she decided to be patient since, on the weekend, he would only be hers. Still, due to her negligence, Kobachi never expected that she would give someone a chance to be with him tomorrow morning. Hey? Senpai. Chapter 78, No Special Call at Night. Senpai. When Ishigami prepared to rest well and sleep tight to prepare for tomorrow, his phone vibrated, and he saw a call from a woman who had taken his virginity. "Sorry for calling you so late, you. Are you about to sleep?" Sub-Aim appeared to be apologetic as she looked at Yu, who was in bed, thinking that she had bothered him by her video call. Yet, Ishigami couldn't get angry, especially when he saw two looming white cantaloupes that were compressed and deformed by the force that came from her lying on her stomach position. Still, while Ishigami wanted to see her body more, he knew that he should appear like a gentleman even if he was a beast inside. But then, how do we answer Sub-Aim's question? In the case of a naive person, they would tell the truth, saying that they were about to sleep. In the case of a cold person, they would urge Sub-Aim to talk hurriedly. However, Ishigami? "No, I also thought about calling you before." This was the correct answer. "Oh." Sub-Aim was surprised by his answer and asked him with a sweet smile as she leaned forward, her body straightened. "Why did you think to call me? I just miss you and want to hear your voice." However, Sub-Aim wasn't so easy to conquer by his smooth talk, even if she was happy inwardly. "Humph." She pouted and showed her grievance by grumbling, "If you hadn't ignored me for the past weekend, I might have believed you." Sorry. I will make you up." "Oh? How will you make me up?" Sub-Aim asked with a curious smile, seemingly eager, waiting for his answer. Ishigami, who saw how fast her expression changed, sighed inwardly, thinking that a woman was really born with an acting talent. Wasn't there any pure and gullible girl in this world? While there were some, it was fortunate that they didn't meet him, or else he would deceive them to death. "I will lick you." "Pervert." Hearing his answer, Sub-Aim quickly scolded him with a blush. "But senpai, you seemed happy when I licked you before." Similar to Sub-Aim, who happily had his lollipop, Ishigami also loved to lick her sweet jar of happiness as it had a love nectar, which was comparable to the sweetest honey. That's. Naturally, Sub-Aim was embarrassed and lost her composure when Ishigami mentioned their first experience at that time. If she had to be honest, she wasn't such a dirty woman, and she also didn't think that sex was really that comfortable. Instead, it was just a chore, something that she had to do when she was in a relationship, or rather, she felt that it was too bothersome to do all of that even if, in the beginning, she was curious. Yet, like everyone in this world, the bigger the hope was, the bigger the disappointment. Still, while she wasn't sure that since she didn't have much experience, she knew well that Ishigami was special. It felt so nice that her body seemed to move on her own, wishing to give him her everything, and made him crazy about her. When she thought about his 19 cm gymnastic stick, she couldn't help but show a longing for their previous practice, but at the same time, she didn't want to lose her face, especially when Ishigami was her junior. How could she let herself be bullied by this bad guy? "Yukon, bad." While Ishigami was speechless by Sub-Aim's childish way of scolding him, he had to say it was effective, and frankly, it gave him a chance to toy with her. "I am sorry, senpai, but I really miss you, after all." "Yukon." Watching him show such a regretful and painful expression, Sub-Aim felt that she might have said too much. No. It's fine. I am also at fault, too, for being harsh. Ishigami was speechless, wondering whether the word bad was such a harsh scolding, but it was also a chance for him. No, I won't forgive you. Sub-aim was stunned by his answer. Unless, can you show me that? Yukun, where did you learn those words? Did you keep a hentai in your room? I am not sure how you can come to such a conclusion, but as you could say that, you must have read a dirty book, hey. Ishigami smiled and said, Senpai is a pervert. Yukun. Sub-aim felt her face was so hot and felt a little angry. Still. Not going to be lewd. Chapter 79, The Safest Place in the School. Working out, washing his body, then eating his breakfast. This routine had become part of his life, and nothing had changed much except how he had to go to school a little earlier than usual. Did he have enough rest? If it was someone else, they might not have it, especially when someone was told to mimic Ishigami's busy schedule. However, due to the system, many of his actions could become a skill that could be trained. Sleeping level 3, 23/100. While he felt a little speechless in the beginning due to the appearance of this skill, he was glad that he had this skill since it helped him to rest to the fullest, sleep instantly, and even recover from his exhaustion in a short moment. Probably, if the level of this skill was raised even further, he believed that he could have a full rest for 2 hours of sleeping, which allowed him to use the rest of his time more efficiently, whether it was to study or learn other skills. Frankly, he realized that he might have learned too much and, as a high school student, shouldn't play around and focus on feeling happy. Yet, the truth of the world had always favored those who had been working hard. The pain and blood he felt now were for a comfortable future, so he knew that he had to work harder, especially when he knew that he lacked time for his time, considering how many girls he was with. If he couldn't maintain the balance of all of them, then there was no doubt he would fall and be crushed by then. Let's not think about it anymore and go to school. Naturally, when he came to the school, he met someone who had been waiting for him and told him to go to school early. Senpai. Good morning, Yukun. The two greeted each other, but even so, their eyes clearly expressed their desire. There was an urge for them to touch each other, but this place wasn't good since they were still in the public, so. Follow me for a bit, Yukun. Where are we going? Gymnastic club. Gymnastic club. Ishigami was stunned since he didn't expect that Sub-aim would be so straightforward. Senpai, while I am happy that you are all excited, isn't doing it at school dangerous? It's a normal gymnastics club. Sub-aim blushed, realizing the gymnastic in their dictionaries was different from what the society perceived. Their gymnastics was special, and it was only exclusive for the two. Normal. Sub-aim nodded and said, didn't I tell you that I have been doing gymnastics since childhood, right? And, while you might not know, I am also the leader of this club. Hey? Really? Yup. Sub-aim nodded, feeling satisfied by Ishigami's reaction. I might not be able to become a professional, but club activities are nothing. Yeah, I can tell. Your body is so flexible, after all. When Ishigami thought about how Tsumabi's body and legs could move in various ways when they had previously done gymnastic training, he understood why this girl could become the captain of the gymnastic club. Baka. Sub-aim blushed, feeling embarrassed, and lightly hit him before she held his hand and pulled him to the gymnastics club. Come on. Hurry up. But is it safe? While having fun was nice, Ishigami knew that it was their #1 priority. You don't have to worry, unlike the student council that can't be locked or other clubs that have guys in it, the club with girls that most of its members are probably the safest place in this school. Why so? It was because it was a girls' club. This might be strange, but while the school had put several cameras in the girls' area for security reasons, it was definitely impossible for them to put those cameras in the girls' area since if they dared to do so, they would become criminals. However, using that loophole, there was no doubt that the gymnastic club, whose members were all girls, had become a safe haven in the Shuchin Academy, especially when Sub-aim was the captain of this club. Watching the sweet yet silly expression on Sub-aim's face, Ishigami realized that he really couldn't underestimate Sub-aim. While Sub-aim might appear like a sweet, silly woman who was loved by many, Ishigami knew well that her brain was ingenious, but then again, he wondered how this woman wished their relationship to develop. After all, unlike Onodera, who confessed to him, Chika, who wished to be his only woman, or even Kobachi, who wanted him so much, Ishigami wondered what Sub-aim wished to do. Yes, Their meeting might be short, but even so, they had done that, and probably, in the future, they would do it a lot, so then, was it okay to just treat her as a convenience woman? However, as Tsubame never expressed her feelings, Ishigami wasn't sure how to handle her, but then, probably because she thought of herself as older, she was relatively patient and also tolerant toward him. If they had a relationship, Ishigami probably imagined that she would dote on him somehow. Well, that wasn't bad, he thought. But then again, when he thought about how she invited the naive and innocent him to her house before she suddenly attacked him, even though she knew he had a girlfriend, it was quite hard for him to think about taking their relationship further. Still, as he had slept with her and knew how she took care of her body instead of being a slut, he knew that she was someone that could become part of his life. Yet, there was no need to hurry, and he took everything slowly, he thought. While some people might think that it was a bit too much, he felt that it wouldn't be too late to determine everything after he graduated from high school since, by then, he was at a legal age, and after 3 years, he knew that. With his ability, skill, and everything, he could reach a height that no one could imagine. More importantly, Tsubame was in her 3rd grade, and in a year, she would graduate. If it was the previous Ishigami, he might feel anxious, thinking of Tsubame, who had graduated and entered a university stage, thinking many bad things might happen, but for him, he felt that a university wasn't that much different from a high school. Whether it was a high school or a university, everyone still had a leeway to have fun and enjoy their life. As for the working adult, ha ha ha. It was better to sleep after working hard enough in a day. Still, while Ishigami was relatively calm, Tsubame was all giddy and excited, especially when she held his hand. His hand was nice, she thought, firm, slender, yet strong. When she thought of his fingers playing with her 2 melons and cherries, her body seemed to exude a pheromone that told the man that she liked she wanted to do a gymnastic play with him. Her perky and trained buttocks seemed to sway left and right as if trying to tempt the male. Ishigami couldn't look away before he looked up, raising Tsubame, who glanced at him with a naughty gaze. Pervy. While she might not have said anything, what she said was clear from the movement of her fleshy, cherry lips. However, Tsubame quickly looked away, feeling her body was scorching, when she noticed his eyes. It was the eyes of a hungry beast, an existence that wished to eat her whole. Even if she turned, she could still feel his eyes, but instead of hating it, she loved it, and it made her body giddy. The two subconsciously moved faster before they arrived at their destination. Here. Yes, wait a moment. I will open the lock in the changing room. Taking the key from her pocket, Tsubame put the key into the hole and then used her fingers to unlock the lock. When she did so, she tucked part of her bangs behind her ear, showing her graceful act, which made Ishigami focus on her white, slender nape. Come in, you-kun. His stupor was quickly broken when he was pulled inside. Probably because Tsubame thought that no one would come even if they hadn't locked or fully closed the door, she directly attacked his lips, kissing him obsessively. It was just an accident that happened, and Ishigami was stunned since he hadn't expected this accident. Suddenly, someone entered the room, which startled the two, but before the two could react, Tsubame was pushed, and Ishigami felt his collar pulled before he was kissed. Chapter 80, Greedy. Slurp. 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 The sound of sloppy and lewd kisses echoed within the locker room of the gymnastics club, which stunned the two. Kobachi. Ishigami was stunned when he saw Kobachi, who suddenly barged into the locker room, pushed Tsubame, then kissed him forcefully. Yet, while Ishigami was too stunned to react, Tsubame, who was pushed, quickly recovered and her head was filled with emotions, especially when she looked at the person who had pushed her. At the same time, when she looked at the expression of the person who pushed her as if she had won, showing her sovereignty toward him, her emotion exploded, and she directly stood up, then pushed away Kobachi. Hey! Kobachi, who thought that she was the winner, was stunned when Tsubame suddenly pushed her. More importantly, unlike her, who spent most of her days indoors, Tsubame was the captain of a gymnastics club, so the moment Tsubame pushed her away, she couldn't do anything except stare at this slutty senior, who forced herself on Ishigami. Ishigami, who couldn't react, was once again kissed by Tsubame. As the two kissed, Kobachi was in a daze, never expecting Tsubame to do this. In the beginning, she thought that Ishigami would come early this morning even if they didn't make a promise, thinking that he would miss her kiss and have that secret rendezvous once again in the library. Yes, she found him, and she was happy, thinking that the two had similar thoughts and, as expected, they were soulmates, yet when she was about to greet him, she stopped when she saw Tsubame was there, happily greeted him before Tsubame pulled him away. Her expression quickly became ugly, and she quickly followed them, yet she had never thought that this sweet senior, who was loved by many due to how kind and gentle she was, would suddenly make a move on Ishigami. Kobachi's mind was blank for a moment, and she couldn't help but remember how Tsubame softly talked to her during her middle school time when she started to feel about Ishigami for the first time. She thought of Tsubame as a senior who could be trusted, someone kind, and someone who was fitted with Ishigami. Yet, after she made her relationship clear with Ishigami, she had never thought that this perfect senior would make a move on her beloved. Watching how Tsubame started to make out with Ishigami after she kissed him and showed their relationship, Kobachi couldn't believe what had happened, but then, an emotion started to overflow, and this definitely wasn't a gentle emotion. It was an ugly and twisted emotion that wished to beat the shit out of this whore. So, even after she was pushed, Kobachi stood up once again and pushed Tsubame away, trying to pull Ishigami into her embrace. However, unlike before, Tsubame didn't fall and stood her ground before she held Ishigami tightly. "What are you doing?" Kobachi couldn't help but ask Tsubame in anger. Did Tsubame not realize whose man Ishigami was? It was you who should ask yourselves. Tsubame didn't have her usual smile, and she appeared expressionless, clearly showing her anger. "What are you doing, Ozaragi-san? Don't you know that his girlfriend is Arai-chan? Oh, please. You should look in the mirror, senpai. You know that he has a girlfriend, right? Then, why have you made a move on him? Aren't you the same? Don't act like you are the right one here." Yes, the two of them had made a move on Ishigami even though they knew that he had a girlfriend. However, unlike Kobachi, who thought that she had done the right thing, Tsubame had never thought of herself as the correct one. She knew that their relationship was wrong, yet she didn't mind as long as she could be with him. However, wasn't Kobachi the same? Yet, why did this girl act like she was a saint? Kobachi flinched for a moment, but at this moment, her emotions were all over her head, and she didn't care about what was right or wrong. Instead, she thought of Ishigami as hers, so how could she let Tsubame have him? Let go of him? No, you should be the one who let go of him. You bitch! Aren't you the same? Whether Kobachi or Tsubame, the two of them never thought of giving up, and the two of them were about on the verge of fighting. Yet, Ishigami, who was in the middle and being pulled by the two, was silent. In the original, the relationship between Kobachi and Tsubame was amiable, they were close to each other, and probably, Tsubame was the senior that Kobachi respected and someone that she thought to be suitable with Ishigami. However, at this moment, the two of them were fighting each other, clearly showing their hostility and even ready to get physical, and at the same time, they were all the same in his eyes. Whether it was Kobachi or Tsubame, Ishigami felt that they were all the same. But then again, he had to say that having more than one woman was exhausting, but this was also his responsibility since he couldn't reject them and lusted over the reward in their bodies. If he kept silent, he knew that they would become enemies, and the fight would become so horrible that it would attract many, especially when their voices were raised so high that it would attract the attention of many. So, at that moment, he knew that he had to stop them. Kobachi and Tsubame were ready to get physical, but suddenly, they felt someone hug them tightly. At 2x. Ishigami hugged the two of them tightly before he kissed Kobachi's lips. Kobachi was surprised, but then she smiled happily and kissed him with obsession, thinking that this kiss meant that he had chosen her, enjoying this kiss so much. Watching this, Tsubame fell into silence and didn't move, just feeling bitter, watching how Ishigami had chosen Kobachi instead of her, but then again, when she thought that she wasn't a virgin and she couldn't give her first time to him, she couldn't help but feel inferior to Kobachi, who still had her virginity. She is also beautiful. While Kobachi's size might not be as huge as hers, there was no doubt that her appearance was the best, whether it was in the school or anyone that Tsubame had seen. Yet, when Tsubame started to get depressed, her eyes started to redden with tears, thinking that she would lose him unexpectedly, Ishigami started to kiss her. Her eyes widened in surprise, and the tears that had been forming in her eyes stopped due to the shock of his kiss. However, Kobachi felt her head blank since Ishigami, the man that she loved, would start to make out in front of her, kissing Tsubame so strongly that Tsubame leaked a sweet voice from those fleshy lips. The room was quiet, only the sound of the kiss between Ishigami and Tsubame, along with Kobachi's breathing, was heard. Then, everything became still when Ishigami stopped the kiss as he took a deep breath. Whether Kobachi or Tsubame didn't say anything, even if his kiss made their bodies long for his kiss once again, his decision to kiss the two of them one after another made them stare at him in silence, waiting for his answer. Now, the problem is, what should he say? Ishigami kissed them to make them shut up and not to cause him trouble due to the loud voices that came from their conflict. Yes, this conflict was all due to him, but at the same time, wasn't it them who made a move on him? At this moment, he became a little annoyed at the two, thinking that because of the two, he might be forced to move so far away outside of the country, but he suppressed his emotions so he could talk to the two of them calmly. Regardless, there were many things that he wanted to say, but the only words that came out of his lips were, "Can you two be mine?" Shigami decided to be greedy.
Thanks for listening.